Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. CA Rachna Ranade ma'am would be joining us very soon. Thank you. Thank you, participants, for waiting. We have just received a message that ma'am is joining us very soon. Thank you. Thank you everyone for waiting patiently. We have Rachna ma'am here with us. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello everyone, just one minute. I'm just trying to figure this out. Oh my god, I've gone through so many technical glitches in the last 15 minutes. Finally, I'm doing the stream from some other location only. But okay. Am I properly audible?
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
Perfect.
Okay.
So do I take it right away?
Ma'am, we'll introduce you and then you can have your talk. We can also reserve some time for question and answer with the audience we have here.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. So, good evening and a very warm welcome to all and all present. After a very enlightening day one of Vaktavya 2021, with great pleasure and with carrying forward the same enthusiasm from yesterday, I welcome you all to day two of Vaktavya. I'm extremely excited to introduce to you all our first speaker for today. All those who follow stock markets, investing, etc., need no introduction to CA Rachna Ranade, ma'am. Ma'am has made a special place for her in lives of we new gen investors through her teachings. She has been part of the YouTube community for the past 10 years. This year has been more special as she has exponentially gained more than 3 million subscribers on YouTube. From watching her live streams on YouTube to having her here today with us, we're all very excited to have you. So join me in welcoming CA Rachna Ranade, ma'am, as she leads us through her thoughts on stock markets and its correlation with economic indicators. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you.
All right. So thanks a lot for this warm welcome. And again, I would like to apologize, everyone. Sorry for the delay. My laptop blew off, and there were in the last 10 minutes I've been through a technological turbulence, and finally, through all on and offs, I'm finally here and trying to give this session. So a very good evening to all those who are in this session. I'm glad to be the first speaker. Hopefully, no one sleeps through the entire session and everyone is absolutely active. Japnesh, can the students send me chats if I go to ask them questions?
Yeah, definitely, ma'am.
Perfect. So that I'll be able to see whether they all are listening to me or is some other window open and they are doing something else or not. All right. Chalo. So the topic basically that we are going to discuss today is about economics, basically economic indicators and how we can try and correlate that with a stock market, right? I'm sure that you might have heard about two base types of economic indicators. One is known as a leading indicator and one is known as a lagging indicator, right? So if I'm talking about Bollywood movies, so whenever there is a crime scene, मर्डर हो जाता है, सब कुछ हो जाता है, उसके बाद अपनी पुलिस आ जाती है एंड वो बोलती है अरे कुछ गड़बड़ हो गया है. What type of indicator is that? Is that a leading indicator or is that a lagging indicator? I want the answers in the chat box now. Yes, everyone has given the correct answer till now. Kirti, Shreyansh, Shrijan, Muskan, Tanmay, Mehek, Sona, Nishan. क्या बात है, क्या बात है. Everyone understands Bollywood really well and everyone has given the correct answer that this is a classic example of a lagging indicator, right? So in simple words, if I were to talk about what is a lagging indicator, something happens first and then you come to know that, okay, this is something which has happened and then the impact on the stock market will start showing up. Okay, what will be a leading indicator? I'm sure you have gone to hill stations and the moment you go to hill stations, there'll be a person who wants to read your hand and he's going to tell you that what is going to happen in the coming few months or years of your life, right? What kind of indicator is he giving? The Jyotshi, what kind of indicator is that person giving? Is that going to be a leading indicator or is there going to be a lagging indicator? Everyone in the chat box again. Yes, and the correct answer is that the Jyotshi is going to give us a leading indicator. Absolutely, the answer is correct. Okay, so now that you have understood what's a leading indicator, what's a lagging indicator, for that, I will now quickly go through one by one indicators. I will be able to share my screen, right? So that everyone sees what kind of examples I'm wanting to give you all. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Now you can.
Now I can. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. share. Achha, my screen is visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay. My screen has gone to extreme left achanak se. Okay, no worries. So I'm going to look at my screen and then I'm going to talk to you. Okay, aise tircha thoda baat karungi. Okay. Chalo, so the very first example is of a leading indicator. Let me just present my screen and see if it's better. Is it better now? Okay. Simple example, credit growth means what? If banks are giving more and more loans, can I say that is an example of a credit growth? I just want quick answers, yes or no. Banks are giving more and more loans. Is that a credit growth? Yes or no? Someone is madly drilling right next to my apartment. So, anyways, they are drilling knowledge. Maybe. Okay, yes, everyone is saying yes. So that's a classic example of a credit growth. Now, if I'm saying that the credit growth is very good, is our Indian economy, if the credit growth is very strong, is our Indian economy on a positive note or is it on a negative note? I want answers again in one word, positive note or negative note. If the credit growth is very high, is on a positive trajectory, very good. I'm getting correct answers. That is correct. That's the correct answer, positive. Now look at the chart. Okay. You can see the chart from February 2019, where a year on year, I hope everyone understands year on year and quarter on quarter, QOQ versus YOY. See, if I'm talking about QOQ, what am I comparing this quarter with the previous quarter? That is QOQ. And what is YOY? This quarter versus the last year's same quarter. Correct? So year on year, if you see that the credit growth percentage terms, February 19, it was 13.2. Japnesh, can the students also see my mouse movement?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, perfect. Now you can see that from February 19, the credit growth has been continuously decreasing, stagnated around May, June, July, and August it dropped down to almost 9.8%. And in fact, even I tried to check out for some other months data, the next few months data, I could see it in numbers, so I did not put it in the graph as such. But the credit growth was on a continuous downfall. Now that is surely a sign of something bad which is about to happen. So if the credit growth is a degrowth, basically we call this as a degrowth. Okay, the loan disbursement is less. Now tell me, if the loan disbursement itself it is less, is it going to have a good impact on the stock market or a bad impact on the stock market? Again, a single word answer I want. Bad impact on the stock market, obviously. And everyone knows, as I mentioned, September to almost February 2020, the credit growth was very muted. Muted means what? Very less, very stagnated. Okay. Everyone knows what happened in in March 20. coming into place. Can anyone put the full form of PLI in the chat box? Because that is something which is being talked about very much in the market right now. Full form of PLI? Product. LI क्या है? Very good. Srijan has given the first correct answer. That's production linked incentive. Absolutely. More you produce, higher will be your incentive. Okay. Now quickly tell me, if PLI is declared by the government, can I say that can give a big boost to all the companies? Will they be encouraged to manufacture more and more? Absolutely yes. If they manufacture more and more, their capacity utilizations will go up. Correct? Absolutely. Everyone is giving a correct answer. Everyone is alive. No one is sleeping. Very good. Okay. So I hope this point is also clear. Capacity utilization gives us a hint. Leading or lagging, it's a leading indicator. I'm sure everyone might be aware about what has happened in the auto sector right now. Okay, this is about history. Everyone has to tell me in the comment section right now, what is the current scenario for auto sector right now? Is the capacity utilization at high levels or is it at low levels right now? Low levels. Absolutely. Why? Why? Chip shortage, says Japneesh. Chalo, chip shortage, lack of demand, says Sona. Lack of demand in pandemic, says Tanmay. Okay, but primary answer is the chip shortage answer. Okay, once the chip shortage thing eases out, then automatically the auto space will start performing well. Now you only tell me, if I can see this, are chip shortage, कब से हो रहा है? What is chip shortage, man? Oh, Acha, Sai Varun, if you don't know what is chip shortage, I'll quickly explain it to you. Now, all these days, what type of cars are we talking about? Are we talking about normal cars or something like internet inside kind of cars? MG Hector type of cars, right? Where you can talk to the car, you can give vocal commands to the car, and car understands. Acha, if Rachna has come inside, then she loves this type of music. The moment I get into the car, I put on my seatbelt, my favorite songs will play. Automatically the car will pull up on the dashboard that okay, this is what the temperature is right now, and welcome Rachna, I hope you enjoy this ride, la la la. What the car interacts with me. So that is where a chip is required, which helps me to communicate with the car and the car to communicate with me. Okay, now do you think in a Maruti 800 car this chip will be required? Yes or no? In Maruti 800 car? No, obviously not. There we don't even have power windows. Correct. We don't even have power steering. Forget about all such fancy stuff like me talking to the car and all that. Okay. So earlier, so for those who are not able to understand, ये अचानक से chip shortage आया कहाँ से? इतने दिन तो हमने कुछ chip shortage सुना नहीं था. ये आजकल क्या फैशन आ गई सब chip shortage के बारे में बात करें? क्यों बात कर रहे हैं आप बताओ? क्योंकि आजकल के मैक्सिमम कार्स जो है, are they going more and more with the interaction phase? Are they going more and more with technology? Are they going more and more with a human communicating with a car through the internet, right? If that be so, we require those chips, semiconductor chips, and that is in a shortage right now, because of which overall capacity utilization of automobile sector is low. Now you only tell me, the moment chip shortage news started floating in the market, tell me, would that have had a positive impact on the automobile sector or a negative impact on the automobile sector? Yes, now everyone is giving correct answers, negative. And that is why if you have observed, shares of Maruti, shares of other car makers like Tata Motors or Hyundai, whatever, all these were going down. Of course, Hyundai is not listed in India, but all these automakers, their stock prices were going down and down and down. Now, as and when the chip shortage problem is solved, then slowly and steadily things will start getting on a okayish mode. Acha, any idea, any Indian company or in which Asian market any company in the Asian market where semiconductors are manufactured to a great extent? Any companies? क्या बात है ओंकार? मुस्कान? तालिबान? क्या मुस्कान? Amit says China. अमित, दुनिया में हर एक चीज चाइना में नहीं बनती है, ठीक है? And I'm glad many people have given the correct answer. Taiwan is one of uh, the places where semiconductors are being manufactured. In fact, I had an entire Teachers Week celebration on my YouTube channel, and on 5th of September, I have taken a live stream wherein I talk about all the Asian markets. Okay, and in that Asian market session, I did talk about the Taiwanese stock exchange, and in that I have talked about few companies which manufacture these semiconductors. Okay, and the most important question: can I invest in these companies directly? Because I know there's a shortage, I know that there'll be a demand, and I know that if there is a high demand for semiconductors, their prices will shoot. Can I directly invest in these stocks? Answer is unfortunately no. Then in that case, how do I go about the investment? Can I invest in them indirectly through mutual funds? A yes or no answer. Can I invest in these companies indirectly through mutual funds? Yes or no? And the answer is yes. Aishani gives the first answer. Correct answer is yes. We can invest in these companies through mutual funds. If you want to know the names of all these companies, you can check out my live stream on 5th of September. उतने ही views बढ़ जाएंगे मेरे वीडियो के, है ना? अभी कुछ बताने में कोई सेंस नहीं बनता है, views कैसे बढ़ेंगे फिर? ठीक है, चलो. So moving on to the next one. Next one is bond yields. Got nothing to do with James Bond, right? But here we are talking about bonds as a financial instrument. It is always a sign that the moment you see falling bond yields, that is a sign of, you can expect a market turbulence. Okay, here you can see in the image that the bond yields somewhere around 2014 were around 8.37%, and it has gone down and down and down till what, 6.52%. Okay, falling bond yields are a sign of something bad might happen. Experts say that falling bond yields can indicate that markets do expect a recession. Okay, so we have to be very careful that whenever you can see bond yields drastically dropping down, we have to be a bit careful. Again, this is also an example of what? This is also an example of a leading indicator, right? What is the next one? Next one is house launches. Again, have a look at this interesting piece of data. Here you can see, let me start from March 19, where it had peaked up. March 19, that is where the housing launches were. In June 19, fell down. And check out September 19, such a drastic fall. Okay, now here you can see that the moment housing launches are going down, can I say automatically one sector which can terribly get impacted is the real estate sector. No doubt about it. Simple one, right? If you have heard about this, if you have heard someone say this, the real estate sector is considered to be one of the sectors which gives us a reflection about the economy. Can you tell me why real estate sector is one of the most important sectors in the economy? बाकी कोई भी sector पकड़ लो, we can say that it is one of the sectors, but primary one of the most important sectors is real estate sector. Can anyone tell me why? Generates jobs, okay. Middle class investing in it, okay. More than 50 allied industries. Very good answer, Madhavi. That is the correct answer. So many allied industries. Now, I want answers from you all. Chalo. If I'm saying that housing is in full swing, which all sectors will go in swing along with housing? 50 नाम नहीं चाहिए अपने को, 5 मिल गए तो फिर बहुत हो गया allied sectors में से. Okay, we are saying more than 50 allied industries, but I want only 5. Let's go one by one. If housing is in boom, can I say banking and finance will be in boom? Yes, more and more people will take loans, and more loans being disbursed, banking will see a positive, right? Second one, iron, steel, cement. Iron, steel, cement. Okay, chalo, 4 idhar hi ho gaye. But or if I can consider that as one, anything which is like iron, steel, cement, base raw material, I can say that demand will get picked up, right? Third one, someone is saying electronics and furniture, that demand will get picked up. Someone is saying architectural services, that demand can get picked up. So many different sectors. You talk about pipes, okay. I'm sure everyone knows about companies like Prince Pipes listed on the stock exchange, right? Astral pipes will see a positive demand. Then you can think about more and more houses being constructed automatically. Which other sectors? Can it be also FMEG sector, which can see a big boost? Does it relate to multiplier effect? Yes, Amit, absolutely. Automatically FMEG sector, the sector that I was trying to point out. Who can give me a full form of FMEG? I'm not saying FMCG, FMEG. That will also see a big boost if the housing is in a positive trajectory. Fast moving consumer goods. Fast moving. Array FMEG. Madhavi is guessing now. Sai is also guessing. Fast moving edible goods. Fast. But that was a good one. Huh? I'm going to use that as a joke somewhere else. It's fast moving electric goods. Absolutely. Electrical goods. Okay. Now, fast moving electrical goods. That is again one important segment. See, more and more houses being constructed. Tubes, fans, AC, all these are what? FMEGs. Correct? Polycab, if you have heard about this company, again listed on the stock exchange, listed on or on our stock exchange, correct? So Polycab again is into what? Is into FMEG, fast moving electrical goods. Will that also see a big boost? Yes. Can I say overall engineering? Yes. Paints, Asian Paints, Berger Paints, more and more companies that will also see a big boom. If you have heard about a company called as HIL Limited, anyone has heard about this company HIL? If you can just tell me yes or no. ऐसे फालतू जोक मत मारना कि अभी सुना आपसे, वो वाला नहीं चाहिए. सही में सुना है कि नहीं बताओ. Yes or no? No. Amulya says yes. No, Gopesh says yes. Okay. क्या बात है. Manoj says Hyderabad Industries Limited. Manoj, earlier it was Hyderabad Industries Limited. Now it is titled as HIL only. Okay, so a good answer from Manoj. Right. So HIL is a company which is in something like related to housing sector. How I'll tell you. I'm sure whenever we construct houses, we all these days we need fancy houses, na? Something like false ceiling is a primary requirement. This company HIL Limited makes false ceilings. Now there are many fancy houses these days which will not go with normal walls. They will go with movable walls. They want changes in their house also. Something like partitions basically. Okay. I'm sure in your college also you might have seen teachers having cubicles. Correct? These partitions are also made by whom? Are made by HIL. Okay, so HIL is not only into roofing solutions there. So you can imagine a house, roofing solution is required, walling solution is required, and flooring solution is required. Yes or no? Three basic things. If I'm talking about a house, three basic things. We need a roofing solution, we need a walling solution, and we need a flooring solution. All these three are made by HIL. Manoj seems to be my pro investor member on YouTube. He is saying it's the stock of the month. Kya baat hai? So just in case if you don't know, I have I have memberships on my YouTube channel wherein I discuss one stock in 100% detail. It's a huge long video, 45 minutes, 1 hour video almost, wherein I discuss about one stock, uski puri kundali. How did it start? Which products? Business in detail, financials, technicals, everything. And I think if you want to learn more about stock market in absolute detail, you should consider joining the Pro Investor memberships. Per month charges are $3.99. Whenever you go to eat a pizza, you spend more than that. Okay, one iced tea plus one mac chicken plus French fries, and of course it will be not only you, right? You plus one. 1 plus 1 to banta hai na, whenever you go to MacD or anything, such restaurants. So you are going to spend easily $3.99. So instead of one meal to a restaurant, you can consider investing in knowledge. Right? So anyways, I hope you have understood. If more and more house launches are happening, is that a mirror for our economy, that our economy is performing well? Yes or no? Again, I want a quick answer in yes or no. Housing sector is in boom. Is that a leading indicator? Yes. As we told right now, that is where we come to know that so many allied industries are going to be pumped up, are going to go in a very positive note, right? So I hope you have understood this connection as well about housing launches. Okay, some other leading indicators, example, I'm just going to quickly take up and then we are going to move on to the lagging indicators, right? It could be weekly overtime hours, but again, getting these data points is a little bit tricky. So I'm not going to go into all these into detail. Acha, by the way, if you have checked out all the previous pictures, I have mentioned from where did I pull up this data point. Here, right next to the image, can you see from where have I pulled up the data point? If you can type out in the comment section, from where. First image, I have given source. Second image, also I have given the source. Third image, also I have given the source. Yes, RBI. Because I'm not going to give you a lecture every single time. No? You should know from where to pull up the data. Correct? So you have to go and visit the website rbi.org. That's where you'll get to know about all the data points, wherein all the indicators that I'm talking about, you'll get to see, of course, absolutely free of cost. So data is available on the fingertips. It's just about how can you interpret them. So I hope housing launches point is also clear. Average weekly time, I'm not going to go so much in detail. Logic is simple. Getting hold of such data is a little bit difficult. How much it is reliable, it's a bit questionable, right? Again, one more point is about consumer expectation. Again, this is a little bit dicey area. So again, not going so much into detail on this. Now let's quickly go to the lagging indicators. But I thought of spending more time on leading indicators. Why? Because that's where we can guess what can come up in the economy in the coming few months. Okay, one more leading indicator before I move on. One or two or three, one leading indicator. I'll talk about that later. First lagging indicators. Without going into our slides, chalo, let me see if you can guess this right, whether this is a leading indicator or this is a lagging indicator. Okay, let me see if you can get the correct answer. I'm sure everyone knows that GST collection number is released. GST collection number is released every month or every quarter or every half year or every year. I want an answer in the comment box. When is GST collection data released? Monthly, quarterly, half yearly, yearly? क्या बात है? Barring 1, 2, 3, 3 wrong answers. 7 में से 3 गलत है. तो 4 लोगों ने तो सही दिया. अच्छा, now people are giving correct answers. चलो, monthly is the correct answer. Okay, every month our GST collection data is released. Okay, I want an answer from you all. GST collection will be a leading indicator or will that be a lagging indicator? Lagging, correct. Why? अरे पूरा महीना हो गया, खत्म हो गया, सेल्स हो गए, पैसा आ गया, उसके बाद रिटर्न फाइल होता है. रिटर्न फाइल होने के बाद वो गवर्नमेंट के पास डेटा आएगा, उसके बाद वो पब्लिश करेगा. CID type or police type, everything is over, and then we are getting to that data point. Okay, so what kind of indicator is that? That's a lagging indicator. Okay, any idea on how our GST numbers have been performing for the past 2-3 months? Good or bad? Our GST collections? Good. गुरजोत को अच्छे नहीं लगे, बस बाकी सब गुड बोल रहे. Any idea on whether it is above 1 trillion or below 1 trillion? ट्रिलियन कितना पता है क्या? सबसे पहला सवाल ये आता है, ट्रिलियन मतलब क्या? लोग गूगल कर रहे हैं. 1 trillion is how much? 1 lakh crore. Yes, 1 trillion is 1 lakh crore. Is it above or below that? Absolutely. Many people are giving correct answers. क्या बात है? Japneesh, I must say that students of your college are very well read. Huh? All your friends, including you, are well read. I'm glad about that. Chalo, so correct answer is it's above the 1 trillion mark. If you see GST figures back to back 3 months going above 1 trillion, is that going to boost the sentiments of the investors? Answer is obviously yes. But again, as I'm mentioning, that's not a leading indicator. That is going to be a lagging indicator. Chalo, one more quick example before I go ahead. GDP data, leading or lagging? Achha, I'm sure you might be aware that two types of correct. Why it's going to be which kind of indicator? It's going to be a lagging indicator. Absolutely yes. Okay, so going ahead with our slides now. Quickly, I'll take you through few more slides. Examples of lagging indicators. This is unemployment data. Okay, if you see that unemployment is picking up, is that a good sign for the economy? Unemployment picking up. Good sign for the economy? No, not at all. But now understand why unemployment is a lagging indicator. Okay, first try and understand this. Do you really believe that any businessman is going to just kick out their employees the moment the employer feels that maybe the demand for his product has dropped immediately? Chalo, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a staff of 20-22 people. I believe that the demand for my product is not that much as I'm expecting. Immediately, am I going to cut it? Am I going to throw out my employees? No, no. Possibility number one, what can I do? Any idea? So you are my consultant. What could I have done rather than directly kicking them out? Wage cuts, absolutely. Possibility number one is wage cuts. Slow down new recruitment, do cost cutting, half salary. ये सब आप सबके साथ भी हो सकता है, ज्यादा आंसर मत देना, कहीं कुछ हो जाए तो आप बोलेगा अभी तक जॉब तो लगने दो मैडम, उसके बाद ये सब सैलरी वैलरी क्या। चलो, सो आई होप यू आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग दिस। कहीं ना कहीं कॉस्ट कटिंग होगा, कहीं ना कहीं नए रिक्रूटमेंट्स बंद हो जाएंगे, कहीं ना कहीं मे बी आपका सैलरी का जो पेमेंट साइकिल है वो हल्का सा चेंज हो जाएगा, राइट। एंड सब कुछ होने के बाद आपको याद है तो कैपेसिटी यूटिलाइजेशन, क्या फैक्ट्री को एक दिन छुट्टी दी जा सकती है? कैन देयर बी फैक्ट्री क्लोजर फॉर अ डे और टू इन अ वीक? एक दिन फैक्ट्री बंद, एक हफ्ते में एक दिन फैक्ट्री बंद, बिल्कुल हो सकता है। यस, यू माइट हैव सीन अगेन सेम थिंग इन ऑटो स्पेस। सो सबसे पहले ये सब चीजें होती है, ये सब होने के बावजूद इफ नथिंग हैपेंस ऑन द कार्ड्स, देन व्हाट इज द लास्ट रिजॉर्ट? लास्ट रिजॉर्ट इज अनफॉर्चुनेटली आस्किंग योर एम्प्लॉइज टू लीव द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। ओके, तो यहाँ पे हो जाएगा आपका अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट का डेटा बढ़ते हुए नजर आएगा। सो दैट इज द लास्ट स्टेप दैट हैपेंस एंड दैट इज the only reason why it is always shown as a lagging indicator rather than what a leading indicator. Acha, did we also talk about GDP growth? We did talk about it. So everyone knows why GDP is a lagging indicator, right? Third one is corporate earnings growth. अच्छा, आज ही किसी बड़े कॉर्पोरेट के नंबर्स आए हैं? Anyone who can tell me? Those who follow my channel, you might be aware that I talk about that stock so many number of times on the channel. One of the key promoters is Mr. Damani. DMart. Yes, correct answer, DMart. Acha, now if you know what has happened to their profit, anyone knows? 110% increase, says Manoj. Manoj is on fire. क्या बात है? Okay, so their profit has increased crazily. Now try to see the price movement in DMart. Understand? Today the news has come up. Okay, try to see. Acha, let me see if I can pull up the data on screen so that you will understand a classic example of a lagging indicator rather than a leading indicator. Okay, DMart. Japnesh, is my screen visible on TradingView
Yes,
website? Yes, perfect. Acha, see this. Today the numbers have come up and see this what has happened in the past few days. चलो ये भी छोड़ दो, last 5-6 दिन देखना बस. 1, 2, 3, one small red candle, 4, 5. बोलो, सब तो back to back इतनी हरियाली है. So such a huge price movement. Okay, even from here. So even if I talk about one entire quarter. So one entire quarter from what to what? From 1st of July to 30th of September, correct? Now let us understand. On 1st of July to 30th of September, na, quarter 2. 1st of July, the stock has closed at 3,300. 1st of July, अभी 3 महीने पहले 3,300. What is the latest price? 5,300. 3,300 के ऊपर you can compare 5,300. That's such a crazy move. It's almost 60-70% upside. When did this price movement show up? Did this price movement show up before the quarterly results or after the quarterly results? Price ने react कब किया? Earnings declare होने के पहले या earnings declare होने के बाद में? प्राइस ने कब रिफ्लेक्ट किया? एब्सोल्युटली, प्राइस ने पहले रिफ्लेक्ट किया ना, बिफोर फर्स्ट प्राइस मूवमेंट हैपेंड and then the results came up. Now I hope you are understanding why corporate earnings is what kind of indicator? It's a lagging indicator. First वो पूरा प्राइस इंक्रीज जो होना था वो हो गया, और वो होने के बाद चालू हो जाता है पोस्ट मॉडल, इतना प्राइस क्यों बढ़ गया? अरे इनको प्रॉफिट 110% हो गया ना, इसलिए. Now this is just a study part, but opportunity to make profit has already been lost. This huge price move that we got to see, that we saw earlier, and then came up the quarterly results. Okay, does this mean that ये stock कभी ऊपर आगे जाएगा ही नहीं? वैसे नहीं बोल रही हूँ मैं, corporate earnings के हिसाब से बोल रही हूँ. Okay, so major move जाना था वो पहले ही आ गया था. Few more examples, inventory sales ratio, whatever. Okay, basic चीजें. And last एक छोटा सा फटाफट आप सबको बता देती हूँ. Last one is like a coincidence indicator. In simple words ये क्या होता है? It's like a conjunction of what and what. It's a conjunction of a leading indicator as well as a lagging indicator. In simple words, it's something like साथ साथ चलता है. Okay, अब ये साथ साथ चलने वाला एक है आपका मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एक्टिविटी, ऑल्सो नोन एज द IIP. IIP का फुल फॉर्म नहीं पूछूंगी, मैंने ही दिया है, इंडेक्स ऑफ इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन. ओके, इंडेक्स ऑफ इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन का डेटा अगर आपको चाहिए तो एवरी मंथ, आई होप दिस इज विजिबल, every month somewhere around 10th you'll be able to see the IIP ka number, and this is the website mospi.nic.in. that's where you can get the number of the overall IIP numbers, that and the market can somewhere go hand in hand. Okay, it's neither fully a leading indicator, not fully a lagging indicator. कहीं बीच में धोबी का कुत्ता ना घर का ना घाट का, वैसे वाला ये, कभी आगे चलता है कभी पीछे चलता है. ओके, सो दैट्स व्हाई वी कॉल इट एज व्हाट, वी कॉल इट एज अ कोइंसिडेंट इंडिकेटर, थोड़ा थोड़ा साथ साथ चलने वाला. ओके, again quickly, I'm sure everyone will come to know about, everyone will agree with this, agree with me that if IIP is going down, good sign for the markets or bad sign? Obviously it's going to be a bad sign for the market. Okay, similar thing with interest rates. I'm sure about this, everyone will agree with me. Repo rate, reverse repo rate, all these things generally go hand in hand. कभी ऐसे, क्योंकि रेपो रेट डिक्लेयर होने के बाद इंपैक्ट नजर आता है, राइट? सो जनरली जैसे ही अपने गवर्नर ने, अच्छा फटाफट गवर्नर का नाम बता दो, हमारे गवर्नर का नाम बता दो चैट बॉक्स में. चलो टाइपिंग स्पीड फास्ट. शशिकांत दास, क्या बात है, वेरी गुड. गुरजोत हैज गिवन द फर्स्ट आंसर. ठीक है, सो जैसे ही रेपो रेट डिक्लेयर हो गया, तुरंत इंपैक्ट बैंकिंग स्टॉक्स पे नजर आया, करेक्ट ना? तो डिड दिस गो हैंड इन हैंड? यस. सरकार ने कुछ एनपीएस के ऊपर अपना कुछ एक स्टैंड लिया, सरकार ने अपनी पॉलिसी बताई, तुरंत मार्केट पे इंपैक्ट नजर आ गया. इट्स नॉट एग्जैक्टली लाइक, नीदर लाइक अ लीडिंग नॉर लाइक अ लैगिंग. तो ये कौन सा वाला हो गया? ये हो गया साइमल्टेनियसली चलने वाला, ये हो गया आपका कोइंसिडेंट इंडिकेटर. ओके, दैट कैन हैपन फॉर कंज्यूमर रेट. वेरी सिमिलर थिंग फॉर कंज्यूमर इन्फ्लेशन. अच्छा बाय द वे, ये डेटा भी आपको MOSPI पे ही मिलेगा. आई वांट अ क्विक आंसर अगेन इन द चैट बॉक्स. फिलहाल आई गेस एक हफ्ता भी नहीं हुआ है, कंज्यूमर इन्फ्लेशन के नंबर्स आ गए. Is the inflation increasing or is it decreasing? Is inflation increasing or decreasing? Gurjot says decreasing, others are clueless. Is it steady? That's a political answer. Okay, increasing, decreasing, mixed answers. Correct answer, as per government it is decreasing. That's a correct answer. As per the government data point, it is decreasing. आपको और मुझे हमेशा महंगाई ही नजर आने वाली है, आपको और मुझे हमेशा पेट्रोल के बढ़ते हुए दाम ही नजर आने वाले हैं. करेक्ट, सब्जी बढ़ रही है, पेट्रोल के दाम बढ़ रहे हैं, बट गवर्नमेंट के हिसाब से इन्फ्लेशन ईज आउट हो रहा है. करेक्ट. सो ये भी कहीं ना कहीं जो डेटा पॉइंट सामने आता है कि इन्फ्लेशन का नंबर डिक्लेयर कर दिया, तुरंत इंपैक्ट आ जाएगा स्टॉक मार्केट पे. तो ना ये लीडिंग हो गया ना ये लैगिंग हो गया, ये साथ साथ चलने वाला इंडिकेटर कंज्यूमर इन्फ्लेशन वाला गया, राइट? कुछ अलग एग्जांपल्स है कि रियल पर्सनल इनकम कितना है इकोनॉमी का. जितना पर्सनल इनकम आपका बढ़ते जाएगा, उतना कहीं ना कहीं लोगों की स्पेंडिंग पावर बढ़ती है, एंड इम्पैक्ट ऑन द स्टॉक मार्केट. सो आई थिंक ये सभी आपको एग्जांपल्स बताना चाहिए. फाइनल एक जस्ट एज एन एक्सेट्रा वाला था ये लास्ट वाला कि रियल पर्सनल इनकम वाला. बट आई होप यू हैव अंडरस्टूड व्हाट आई वांटेड टू पॉइंट आउट इन द लास्ट 35 minutes. We started almost 10 minutes late. Again, sorry for that. But in the last 35 minutes, I hope you understood 3 types of indicators. Agar aapko ek quick recap chahiye, to 3 types of indicators that we talked about. First, we talked about a leading indicator, and leading indicator में हमने क्या-क्या बात की? Bank credit growth, capacity utilization, bond yields, housing launches, and then we moved on to lagging indicators, जिसमें हमने बात की about employment rate, GDP growth, corporate earnings. उसके बाद we went to coincident indicators, जहाँ पे हमने एक manufacturing activity, interest rates, consumer inflation, इस सभी के बारे में बात की. And we also tried to understand the impact of all these on the stock market, right? So I hope आपको एक थोड़ा बहुत वैल्यू एडिशन इस पिछले आधे घंटे में मिला होगा. Let me know what are your thoughts in the comments box, in the chat box. Sorry, any doubt on this?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for the talk. We also have some questions that our team prepared and were actually eager to have you answer them. So, ma'am, one question went we have been seeing in past few, I'd say weeks, that Nifty went from 17,000 to 18,000, like so in a very short span. So, absolutely, how much is that reflection of the true economy, if we say? Because we got to know about the indicators here. So, when we see stock market on one hand and the economy on the other, so how are they two a great reflection of each other? So can we say that is the economy improving? We are in great recovery, that the stock market is like rising so much. We are in a bullish phase. So what are your views on that?
Our governor had given this statement when we were somewhere around 17,000 ke aspas, that stock market is almost in a bubble right now. And this is not a true reflection of our Indian economy, what it is. And since then, it has rallied 1,300 points. So if our governor can't also guess what is the possible direction of the stock market, who are you and me? No one to comment on that, right? But then I personally believe that one or two key parameters can be that right now whatever I talked about right now was more of domestic economics with stock market, right? Now, if you're talking about a little bit of international economics, to be honest, I'm not like very expert in that, but जितना भी मुझे थोड़ा बहुत पता है उसके हिसाब से बता रही हूँ. आप लोग इकोनॉमिक्स ज्यादा समझते हैं मुझसे, बट इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमिक्स में कैसे होता है, एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट होता है आपका बॉन्ड यील्ड्स एंड इंटरेस्ट रेट्स बेसिकली इन द यूएस मार्केट्स. ओके, यूएस मार्केट में जब भी आपके यील्ड्स या फिर बॉन्ड के इंटरेस्ट रेट्स जो है वो अगर बढ़ने लगते हैं ना, तो क्या इंपैक्ट होता है बताती हूँ. वहां के जो हमारे FIIs बोलते हैं, फॉरेन इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर्स जो बोलते हैं, वो इंडियन मार्केट से पैसा निकालेंगे एंड उधर पार्क करेंगे इन बॉन्ड्स. ओके, क्योंकि देन दे वुड वांट टू शिफ्ट फ्रॉम मोर ऑफ अ फ्लक्चुएटिंग टू अ फिक्स्ड कैटेगरी ऑफ इनकम. अब क्या हो रहा है, पिछले इतने महीनों से the US government has been pumping more and more liquidity in the market. If they were to pump more and more liquidity in the market through OMOs, open market operations, I'm sure you might have heard about this term, right? तो open market operation जब भी full swing में चलते हैं तब interest rates कम होते हैं या ज्यादा होते हैं. अगर ज्यादा मनी पंप करना इकोनॉमी में तो इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आर लो और इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आर हाई. एवरीवन, लोअर, एब्सोल्युटली नहीं ऐसा नहीं, करेक्ट आंसर इज लो, इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आर लो. तो जब इंटरेस्ट रेट्स लो है तो यू कैन इमेजिन FIS को कुछ पड़ा ही नहीं ना, कहां पे इन्वेस्ट करेंगे. ओके, अगर वहां पे कुछ है ही नहीं, कुछ मिल ही नहीं रहा है, तो they would want to look for a better option, and what was a better option was the Indian market. So आपको FII का इनफ्लो बहुत आते दिखा मार्केट में. दैट वाज पॉइंट नंबर 1 व्हाई आई फील कि इतना बड़ा मार्केट का रैली हमने देखा इन स्पाइट ऑफ नॉट ऑल इकोनॉमिक इंडिकेटर्स गिविंग अ बिग थम्स अप. सो ये इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमिक्स का एक पैरामीटर था, नंबर 1. नंबर 2, मैंने ये बैलेंस पॉइंट्स में जो लिखा था ना, एग्रीगेट रियल पर्सनल इनकम, ये जो मैंने अदर एग्जांपल्स में लिखा था, क्या हो गया देखो पेंडेमिक में, बिकॉज बाकी अपना स्पेंडिंग ही ऑलमोस्ट खत्म हो चुका था. आई एम श्योर आप सब लोग भी क्रेडिट कार्ड्स, मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स यूज करते रहेंगे या फिर डेबिट कार्ड्स यूज करते रहेंगे. तो आपका ड्यूरिंग द पेंडेमिक खर्चा बढ़ा या कम हुआ, increased or decreased? If you can give me in the chat box. During the pandemic, did your expense increase or decrease? I'm going to get this as a 100% answer, and I was expecting the same. Decreased. अब इतने पैसे को करेंगे क्या, ये सबसे बड़ा सवाल आ गया. फिर लोग ढूंढ रहे यूट्यूब पे पैसा कैसे कमाया जाता है, हाउ टू इन्वेस्ट, वेयर टू इन्वेस्ट. फिर यूट्यूब पे कौन अपीयर होता है, रचना रानडे. रचना रानडे बता रही है कि आप इन्वेस्ट करो स्टॉक मार्केट में. So I'm sure everyone knows about this कि maximum number of retail accounts, retail individual investors account were open during the lockdown. जो flow हुआ है market में, people like you and me, retail individual investors, एक पहले सिर्फ FII DII डेटा देखते थे मार्केट में, अब FII DII एंड RII डेटा भी देखते हैं मार्केट में. रिटेल इंडिविजुअल इन्वेस्टर्स कितना पैसा डाल रहे हैं मार्केट में. दिस वाज बिकॉज ऑफ व्हिच आवर मार्केट्स वेंट. इकोनॉमिक इंडिकेटर्स अच्छा नहीं बता रहे थे, बट ये जो मैं बोल रही हूँ ना, रियल पर्सनल इनकम, तो इनकम में भी उतना ही था, बट बिकॉज स्पेंडिंग कम हो गया ना, तो अपना सेविंग्स बढ़ गया था. सेविंग्स था इसलिए लोगों ने इन्वेस्ट ज्यादा किया. सो इसके वजह से भी जो इन्फ्लो आया मार्केट में, पैसे का इन्फ्लो जो आया, प्राइसेस और से और बढ़ते गए. सो दो तीन चीजें, एक तो मैंने बोला ऐसे FII pumping more and more money in the market. Number 2, retail individual investors pumping more and more money in the market. Number 3, where else do I invest? चलो आप ही बताओ. If not stock market, right now at this point of time, if not stock market, where will you invest? कुछ और है अच्छा जो 14-15? क्रिप्टो मत बोलो लक्ष्य. क्रिप्टो में yes you can get good returns, but at the stake of huge volatility. इतना volatility स्टॉक मार्केट में नहीं है. तुम्हारे एक कोई तो कौन वो इलॉन मस्क कुछ ट्वीट कर देता है, उसके बाद वो टोकन भागता है 400%, 500%, कुछ पागल जैसे, एंड वो कुछ नहीं बोलता है, फिर वो गिर जाता है वापस. ओके, सो क्रिप्टो ठीक है, गालियां नहीं डाल रही मैं उसको, बट I can't say it's a substitute to your investment in stock market. It's way too volatile as compared to stock market, right? रियल एस्टेट आप बोल रहे थे मैं, अरे लेकिन रियल एस्टेट में इतने रिटर्न्स है क्या? अभी नहीं है इतना रिटर्न रियल एस्टेट में. गोल्ड में भी इतना रिटर्न्स नहीं है. नाउ यू कंपेयर हाउ मच stock market has given as a return versus how much real estate has given versus how much gold has given. Right now equity is a clear cut out performer. So if not in equity, where का आंसर ही लोगों को नहीं मिल रहा है. FDs कहाँ का रिटर्न दे रहे हैं? So that is the reason why again more and more people went into mutual funds, into equities, and that is the reason why again market ऊपर आने में मदद हो गई. तो I agree with you जपनीश कि शायद हर एक इकोनॉमिक इंडिकेटर उतना बहुत सही चीज नहीं बता रहा था, बट ये जो एक दो इकोनॉमिक इंडिकेटर्स मैंने बताया, एक तो इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमिक्स वाला एंड सेकंड रियल इनकम माने सेविंग्स आई वांट टू फोकस मोर ऑन, ये ज्यादा था, इसके लिए एक इनफ्लो अच्छा हो गया बिकॉज ऑफ व्हिच द मार्केट्स वेंट हायर एंड हायर.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Definitely. So, ma'am, I guess that would be end of our session here. Thank you very much for your enriching talk. Definitely, I think there would be multiple takeaways for all the people we have here with us. Definitely, it was great experience for the EcoSoc team as well to have you. Thank you very much for joining in. We have our next speaker here as well, Professor Sara Fisher. Richa, I hand over to you. Thank you, ma'am.
One quick thank you from my side as well. Everyone was very participative. I'm glad everyone was putting their answers in the chat box. I was really happy to see such an amazing interaction with the audiences. I guess my team might have handed over a Google form to your team. I would love if you all fill up that Google form. That would be a great thing for me. That would be more like even your feedback form, and I would really love to know if you would want to invest in stock market with more and more knowledge. My team would surely reach out to you if you wish to. So if you want that, my team would reach out to you for more and more information about how you can learn more about stock markets. And please don't forget to fill out that Google form and let me know your feedback about the session. Thanks a lot once again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That was indeed a very enriching experience. And with that, we move on to our next speaker for the evening. We are delighted to welcome Professor Sara Fisher Ellison. She is a senior lecturer in the MIT Economics Department. Her recent research has investigated a number of questions in industrial organization with a focus on the pharmaceutical industry and e-commerce. She serves on a number of editorial boards. She has also taught at the undergraduate, MBA, and PhD levels, and has received awards for both outstanding teaching and pedagogical innovation. With that, I would like to welcome Professor Sara Ellison, who will be talking about internet matching technologies and the geographic distribution of chess skills. Well, that sounds like a very interesting topic. Over to you, ma'am.
Thanks very much for inviting me, and thanks for that very kind introduction. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Let's let's see, here we go. Oh, let me see. I want to do the full screen mode. Okay. Can everyone see the full screen mode of my talk?
Yes.
Okay, great. So again, thanks very much for having me here. I'm going to start my talk actually with a story about how economics sometimes progresses one dinner party at a time. So several years ago, I was sitting having dinner with a couple of friends who were both competitive chess players when they were younger. One had grown up in Chicago and one in Pittsburgh. And if you don't know, Chicago is a very significantly larger city than Pittsburgh, about 10 times larger. And they were sort of talking about the different experiences they'd had as young chess players. The one in Chicago, he said, I was never at a loss to find partners who were at my level or better than me, who would be willing to play with me, and that's how I got better. And the one in Pittsburgh said, yeah, that was always a struggle for me. I sort of got to be in the
recording in progress
elite level in Pittsburgh pretty young. I got to be in the elite level in Pittsburgh pretty young, and then I ran out of people to play with. They both have sons who are competitive chess players, and they said it's completely different for their sons. They just, improve by playing over the internet. And they said they don't even necessarily look for local partners to play with to improve their game. They have people from all over the world that they play with over the internet. And that got me thinking, I'm an economist, I study digitization and e-commerce. And I thought, wow, I could actually, look into this claim and see if I can find evidence to support it and think about what the implications of it were. Okay, so that was kind of the informal motivation for doing this research project. A more formal motivation, more traditional, I guess, is that the internet is just potentially a very important tool for learning. And by the way, I came in at the end of the last talk and I noticed in the chat, someone suggested maybe investing in ed tech companies. And so obviously that's sort of a nice tie-in with what I'm doing here. Ed tech company, one thing that ed tech companies are doing is trying to leverage the power of the internet to teach people not just chess skills, but sort of all kinds of skills and knowledge. And so learning, sort of understanding how powerful a tool the internet can be for learning is important, and understanding how best to use it. There are several sort of sub-questions: access of under-resourced communities to high-quality materials and information. How important is the internet in aiding that? Maybe, in fact, well-resourced communities will be best poised to benefit from the internet. And so, depending on how those two, how those sort of two questions play out, the internet could lead to either a closing or a widening of the economic divide. And so, we, as economists, we'd like to study this and sort of understand what the likely, effects of learning over the internet could be. And furthermore, kind of on a larger scale, we'd be interested in just the effect on the global distribution of knowledge and skills. Is it becoming less concentrated as a result of, sort of people being able to learn skills over the internet, or, as I said, more concentrated in well-resourced communities? And is there a technology, a specific internet technology or specific mechanism that's relevant, that's more relevant than others? And I should say, these questions have particular resonance now in the last 18 months or so to everyone who's either had to teach or learn online in the past 18 months. So let me say a couple words about the particular skill I looked at, chess playing. Why did I choose chess playing? Well, I mean, the proximate cause was because of this dinner party that I had and the conversation. But more importantly, perhaps, a chess playing skill is relatively easy to measure. We have like a really, sort of carefully thought out and comprehensive rating system for international chess players. So at least if you're looking at sort of the top level of chess playing skill, that's relatively easy to measure. We know exactly what the rankings are. It's also been well documented all over the world and for many decades. So we have data going back, as you'll see, 50 years on the distribution of high-level chess skill in the world, geographic distribution. And then there's also this interesting feature that sort of gets at this question of the relevant technology or mechanism of the internet. The interesting feature is that matching with opponents is perhaps the best way to improve your chess game. The broadcast technology of the internet to learn chess might not be particularly important. It might be, in this particular case, that the matching technologies of the internet, the ability to match people of similar chess playing levels, is really the technology that's important here. Okay, so here, what are my goals today? I want to see how geographic concentration of chess playing skill has evolved over the last 50 years. We're going to examine the relationship between an individual's chess playing abilities and his or her likely internet exposure, given age and time series of internet penetration in their home country. Examine the relationship, the overall level of chess skill in a country and its likely internet exposure, given age, distribution, and internet penetration. All of these things will become more concrete in a few minutes. And then finally, I want to decompose the sources of changes in the geographic concentration of chess playing over time. Okay, let me just start with a couple of maps and graphs. You can see in 1971, chess playing, the high-level chess playing skill, we're talking about top 1,000 chess players in the world, were concentrated in a few countries in Europe. Iceland had a large concentration. The then Soviet Union had a large concentration. Moved to 1989, and the pattern has shifted a little bit. India comes onto the map at this point. China comes onto the map. And then fast forward to 2016. And again, the distribution has shifted somewhat. Okay. Between 55 and 60 countries were represented among the top, sorry, I should just say these are a couple of facts about sort of the geographic concentration chess skill over time. So among the top 1,000 chess players in the world in the early 1970s, they were coming from about 55 to 60 countries. And it's been since the year 2000, it's been at least 70 countries. So that suggests kind of a spreading out of the distribution of chess skills. The breakup of the Soviet Union is part of that, but we'll see it's not all of it. Both China and India have made substantial strides in the number of elite chess players that they have over the last 50 years. But in fact, we can do something more systematic than just looking at these maps. We can compute an index of geographic concentration to see its evolution over the past 50 years. Okay, so this is my index of geographic concentration of chess skill. How do we interpret this? What does the vertical axis mean? And by the way, this is over the last approximately 50 years, 1967 to 2016. Okay, so the vertical axis, the way to interpret it is that it is the value of the index can be interpreted as the excess probability that two players chosen at random, two players in the top 1,000 in chess, accomplishment in a particular year, are in the same country, okay? And what I mean by excess probability is that even if we distributed chess skill around the globe just by throwing it, if you can imagine throwing it chess skill at a map of the world, there would be pockets of concentration, but just by chance. And what this index says is there excess concentration above what we would expect if we just randomly threw chess skill at a map? Okay. And the answer is yes, there is. This index is always above 0. So there is excess concentration. It starts about 50 years ago. The index is around 0.25. It's a little variable here. And then it's been going down pretty steadily over the last 50 years. So there is a big spike in the middle. And I just want to explain that for a second. It's not sort of an artifact of the data or even the breakup of the Soviet Union or anything like that. It's just that the Soviet Union actually had an unusual concentration of high-level chess skill during that period. And so this is a real sort of spike up in the concentration just because of one country. Okay, so there is sort of several related literatures. I'm not going to sort of mention them in great detail. But let me just point out the literatures that I'm drawing from for this study. There have been studies of the internet and the internet technologies being used as a matchmaker in some sense, improving match quality in the job market, in dating markets, in academic research, consumer goods markets, et cetera. And so we're drawing on that literature. There's also a very large literature on economic geography and agglomeration economies that I'm going to refer to. I'll mostly rely on this 1997 paper by Ellison and Glaser that develops this index of geographic concentration that I already showed you one example from. And then finally, there's a small literature on economics and chess. There's a recent paper by D'Souza and Niederle about women in chess in Spain, and that they take advantage of a very interesting natural experiment of sort of forcing Spanish chess clubs to include women. But the experiment only lasted for a few years, and they look at the effect, the sort of lingering effect of that policy. And like I said, there are a couple other papers on economics and chess. Okay, so let me also, before I dive into the analysis here and tell you exactly what we've done, I do want to say a couple of words about endogeneity and omitted variable bias in this, in my analysis and sort of analyses like these. So I am going to be exploiting the rollout of internet services to see what effect that rollout has on, sort of chess playing skill in different countries around the world. And there is sort of a literature doing this that's quite careful about omitted variable biases and endogeneity. And what they do is they're using sort of a series of natural experiments in the rollout of internet to try to get very clean identification of these effects. And the type of the natural experiments they're using are differences in internet across legal borders, or geological characteristics, like where internet, it might, in a mountainous area, it might be harder to wire internet or something like that. Physical constraints of infrastructure, et cetera. Those studies provide very clean identification, but if I want to look at something at a worldwide scale, those kinds of natural experiments are not going to be available to me. So I need to do something different. I would argue that reverse causality should not, strictly speaking, be an issue. I don't think that countries were actually choosing to increase their internet penetration just to improve the chess skill in that country. So I don't think that reverse causality should be an issue, but omitted variable bias could be. And the way that we're going to address that is with demographic controls, country fixed effects, and some specifications. And then we're going to have a special variable to pick up how demographics can drive countries' exposure to the internet. Okay, a little bit of history on chess at a distance, and sort of this problem of matching and finding the right opponent to play against. So the problem of finding these appropriate opponents is and playing potentially remotely if your opponent's a long way away is as old as the game itself. So one of the first recorded instances of correspondence chess happened between Emperor Nicephorus and the Caliph of Baghdad, Harun al-Rashid, and it was played remotely in the 9th century. Over the years, there have been lots of celebrated games of correspondence chess between many groups, British and French royalty, Venetian, Croatian merchants, Dutch army officers, etc. And sometimes moves were even carried by pigeons. And so people went to great lengths to figure out how to play chess remotely because they were trying to find the right opponent. The right opponent might be a long ways away. So here is a picture of the British Correspondence Chess Association. I can't remember exactly when it was. I think it was established in the 19th century, but this yearbook is from 1907. And it was explicitly established, quote, to arrange and carry on contests between members and against other clubs and associations. So this whole association existed just to find these matches, to find the appropriate pairings of people to play chess. Correspondence chess received a big boost with the invention of the postage stamp, not surprisingly, and it flourished in 19th century Europe and the US. The remote games were often sponsored by chess clubs, as I said, served this matching function. And matches between clubs could take months or years sometimes if they were sending moves back and forth and the mail was slow. So then email came on the scene at some point. And that was a big technological breakthrough for correspondence chess because of the decreased latency between moves. So you could basically, just immediately get your opponent's move as soon as it happened. But the preeminence of email correspondence chess did not last long because the internet had a better technology than email. And that was the chess server, an internet chess server. So the first one was hosted by the University of Utah and became accessible through Telnet, which is a predecessor of the internet, starting in 1992. And then it moved to Carnegie Mellon shortly thereafter. Here's a screenshot from the Wayback Machine of this free internet chess server. So the 1990s saw a proliferation of servers and increasing numbers of graphical interfaces for playing chess. And importantly, these servers not only facilitated remote games, but they also made matching with suitable opponents easier and easier. You could really sort of pick someone who was very closely matched to you and who was a very good opponent for you to play against. Okay, so chess.com, for example, has, I just took this screenshot a little while ago. And at that moment when I took the screenshot, it had 111,000 players online, potentially ready to play a match. And so a matching to an opponent can be accomplished very easily with just a few clicks. And by the way, chess.com has about 25 million active users today. So that, again, it's just a very rich source for finding opponents. Okay, so what is the data set that we used? We scraped publicly available data about the world's best chess players from the internet. This is just all up there if you look. These data sets included, in some years, the best 200,000 players in the world. Some years, in the earlier years, it was many fewer, but we have just data on a tremendous number of high quality chess players. And it goes, since the early 70s, we have at least 1,000 per year, okay, of the top 1,000. We have information on these players. We know their name, their age, their sex, their country, their rating, and number of games they played. And the rating is the ELO rating. It's the current de facto international standard for rating chess players. So we match this with annual World Bank data on various country characteristics, socioeconomic, geographic, demographic, et cetera. And we also then have data on internet penetration going back to 1990. Internet penetration was very low in all countries before 1990. Okay, so it's a very rich data source, as I said. I'm only going to use a small fraction of these data for this paper. And in particular, only going to look at approximately top 1,000 players. So the very elite of the elite chess players every year. Okay, so what I do is we take we rank the players each year, create a nonlinear weighted rank. And the reason we use this nonlinear weighted rank is that, we thought it was a reasonable way to define kind of embodied chess skill. We don't think a linear weight would make as much sense, just using the ranks, because, the 500th best player, we don't think is sort of half as good or has half as much embodied chess skill as the best player in the world. Okay, so we use this nonlinear weighted rank. It gives a weighted rank of 100 to the best player in the world, and then drops off after that. And the other reason we want to use this nonlinear weighted rank is that it solves a complicated problem of modeling selection into the sample. Okay, so here's the data that we have left. We have at the top of this table is player level data, and at the bottom of the table is the country level data. And let me just point out a couple things in this table. First of all, wow, that's my comment when I saw that the elite chess players were 99% male. And you can see also among the top 1,000 chess players in the world, there's a very wide age range. The minimum we saw was 12 and the maximum was 89. Now, this is going to actually work in our favor because they potentially, given this age range, will have a very different exposure to the internet. Okay, the 12-year-old, the 89-year-old presumably learned how to play well before the internet existed. And the 12-year-old had the internet at his or her disposal for their entire life. So we created these two variables, which are sort of like interactions between age and internet penetration in a player's country. But instead of using what we do is we use a piecewise linear function of age based on anecdotes about when the top chess players learned how to play chess. Okay. So then what we do, so you can think of it roughly as like sort of a age weighted internet exposure or something. And then we cumulate that. Okay. And that's what the cumulative internet exposure variable is. Note that there's also a wide range of internet penetration over this period and over countries. So we get a lot of variation across time. We also get a lot of variation across countries. Okay. And then finally, average age is not average age in the country, but it's just the average age of the chess players in my data set for, at the country level. Okay, so there's basically two broad strategies that I'm going to use here, and I'll just sort of walk through the first one, and then we'll see results from the second one. So the first empirical strategy is that I want to create, one of the motivating questions I had was, what effect might the internet have on the geographic distribution of chess skills? So that suggests calculating an index of geographic concentration, like I showed you earlier in the talk. But of course, what I would like to do is decompose that index to show what effect the internet had and what effect sort of other things had. Okay. And in fact, there's in this sort of Ellison Glaser framework, there's a very straightforward way to do that. Okay. So first of all, let me tell you what the index is. So you compute individual shares of weighted ranks. Okay. So this is the weighted rank that I showed you a couple of slides ago. We just create for each player what share they have of the weighted ranks. It's just a way of standardizing it. Then we add them at the country level. And then we compute predicted country shares based on demographics. So without looking at the actual shares, we just use demographics, population, age profiles, whatever we want to use, and we compute a predicted share. And then we compute this Ellison Glaser index as a function of these things. So in particular, here's the country share of these weighted ranks. Here is the predicted country share based on demographics. And we can put anything in that prediction that we want. And then these are the individual shares. Okay, and so basically the idea is if the sum of the squared deviations between the actual country shares and the predicted country shares are large relative to the sum of squared shares, then the index is big. So if there's a big difference between what we actually see in countries and what we predict, then the index is large. And if there's no difference, then the index is 0. Okay. Yep. So what's nice about creating these indexes? Well, first of all, this, not to go over the entire literature on indexes of geographic distribution, but this one is particularly well designed to recognize that the size distribution of whatever we care about, embodied chess skill in this case, would occur at random, clustering would occur at random, and that has to be reflected in the baseline. So this index does it. We can use whatever predicted share we want as the baseline. Remember, I said any demographics we want can go into this. And so we can modify the index to condition on different variables. And that allows us to decompose the effect of different variables. Okay, and we'll see that at the end of the talk. And then finally, this index accommodates changing borders and country definitions, which is important in the world of chess because the former Soviet Union, very important in the world of chess. It sort of broke up into various countries around 1990, and the index has to be able to accommodate that and be invariant to those changes in borders. Okay. Then the second empirical strategy I'm going to use, which I'll show you the results of first, and that actually feeds into the second one, is that we're going to just perform player year and country year level regressions to try to tease out the effects of age, internet penetration, population density, etc. And then for a player year level, we're just going to regress the weighted rank of an individual player on a bunch of explanatory variables. Okay, very straightforward. For country year level, we're going to use a modified Poisson model with some of the weighted ranks as the dependent variable. Okay, so first set of results. Let's look at the player year level. Again, as I said, the dependent variable is the weighted rank. So we're just going to see what sort of demographic or other variables, explanatory variables, can help explain weighted rank. And I should say that these individual level, the player level results should be interpreted with caution because of a sample selection bias. The country level results we don't have to worry about the sample selection, but the player level results we do. So don't read too much into the player level results. Just think of them as sort of descriptive statistics of the data I have. Okay. So first thing that we note is that the effect of the internet does vary over specifications, but the estimated effect of cumulative internet exposure is consistently positive and significant. Okay. Let's see. And so the way to think about that is that players who come from countries that have had a history, cumulative internet exposure, history of internet exposure, are going to perform better. Okay. Note that the interaction between mail and internet is negative. And so that means that women gain more in rank than men from higher internet levels. And that brings to mind this sort of classic New Yorker cartoon where there are two dogs on the computer and they say, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. But in fact, I crossed out dog and put woman. And why would that be important? Why would it be important that women could use the internet to play chess kind of without anyone knowing that they're a woman? Well, here's a quote from Susan Polgar, who is not only the best woman chess player, but one of the best chess players in the entire world. And she said, quote, "I have never beaten a healthy man." And what she means by that is that every single time she beats a man in a high-level chess match, there's some complaint about, well, I wasn't playing well, I had a headache, etc. I wasn't at my best today, etc. So, her quip was that I've never beaten a healthy man. And so that sort of suggests that there could be a strong gender bias in, who chess players want to play with. And if women can use the internet to kind of mask who they are, that could be a powerful tool for them. Okay, so now on to the country level regressions. What I wanted for the country level regressions was a variable that represented the pool of potential chess talent that could have used the internet to learn how to play chess. Okay, so I wanted to look at a particular country and I wanted to say, look, we know when the internet entered into your country and what the exposure levels were over time. We know what your age distribution was in your country over these years. And so we know the population in your country that was in some sense vulnerable to learning chess over the internet. Okay, and we wanted a variable that represented that. So I couldn't just use cumulative internet exposure. I mean, that variable sort of gets at that idea. Because about 1/3 of the country year observations have no players in the top 1,000. So that would have been selecting on the dependent variable, and that would have caused a sample selection issue. So what I did instead is I started with the age distribution of top chess players. looked back retrospectively for each cohort, year, and country to trace the internet exposure over the lives of that cohort, and then weighted that by the age distribution of internet vulnerable, in other words, young people, in each country at the relevant time. So that's kind of a mouthful. Let me put up a slide that explains exactly how I did that. So let's just take, for instance, the year 2015. Let's suppose this curve represents the chess age, the age distribution of top chess players, where it sort of peaks at, say, 35 or something like that. And then, but then there are sort of tails going out to 12 down at the bottom and 89 at the top or something. Now let's take one particular slice of this distribution, and that's 25-year-olds, okay? And what we can do is we can look back at where 25-year-olds were at different moments during their life, what obviously how old they were at all of those times, what fraction of their country's population they were, and what internet penetration was in their country at each of those years. So if you take 25-year-olds in the year 2015, they were born in 1990, so they were 0. And then let's say in this particular country, as would be true in all countries, I think, the internet penetration was 0 in 1990, okay? Now, look at this same cohort in the year 2005, for instance. They're now 15 years old. They're still, in this particular country, 2% of the population. And then internet penetration in that country, let's suppose, is 40% at that time. And we're assuming that's prime age for learning how to play chess. So they get an age-based weight of 1. So what we do is we multiply across and then sum down this table to get, and we do this for every cohort, and to get this sort of internet-induced pool of chess talent. And then we weight by the chess age distribution and add that up. Okay, so this is a way to basically leverage information we have about how old top chess players are, when the internet was penetrating in different countries at different times, and what the age distribution was in those countries at different times. So what was the population that was sort of vulnerable to learning how to play chess online? Okay, so here you can see this is just a graph of a few of these for a few of the countries we have to illustrate how this variable works. You can see that, let's see, Russia has a different shape than most other countries. And that's because it had relatively high internet penetration early on. But then it also has a sharply aging population. And so even though it had a lot of people exposed to the internet in the early years, most of them were not young, relatively speaking, relative to other countries. They had many fewer young people. And so fewer young people were learning how to play chess on the internet in Russia. You can see rest of the countries have similar profiles, some with steeper gradients than others. Here's India down here, China, and let's see, US, Singapore, and New Zealand all have both favorable demographics. So sort of a fairly young population and remaining young, and internet penetrate and favorable internet penetration in varying degrees. Okay, so now let's look at the country year level results. And here what we're going to use as our dependent variable is we're going to sum up the weighted ranks over all of the top 1,000 players in a country in a particular year. And that's going to be our dependent variable for the country year level regressions. And here's what we see. Oh, yeah, one other point. We shouldn't, I gave you the caveat when I did the individual level results that we had to be, aware of sample selection and not place too much interpretation on those results. We shouldn't have that problem here, okay, because of the weighting scheme I used. Okay, so a couple other notes. Life expectancy is a proxy for socioeconomic factors. Percent largest city and population density should get at the agglomeration economies in each country. So they could serve as sort of a substitute for internet penetration potentially. And you can see that pretty much everything is significant with very large T statistics. And so we have a lot of important explanatory variables here. Okay, so let's look first at internet. So this is just the internet penetration in a particular year, okay, in the year of this observation. And it's consistently negative and significant across specifications. So that might seem a little counterintuitive at first, or maybe it's not counterintuitive, but at least it's, it's suggestive that the internet penetration is actually having a dampening effect on chess attainment in particular countries. So maybe a little surprising. But then when you look at the internet-induced pool, remember that was the variable that I just described a couple of slides ago, that is positive and significant. And this is our preferred measure of the internet's influence anyhow, because it takes into account not only in current internet penetration, but internet penetration during the time when the current players were learning how to play chess, and also takes into account the age composition in the countries that would have been able to take advantage of the internet to learn how to play chess. So it really is our preferred measure, and you can see it's positive and significant. Okay, the internet does seem less important in dense countries, and that's perfectly consistent with our intuition that the internet's a matchmaker. In a dense country, you don't need the internet as much because you can find good opponents for playing chess. We do the same regressions just for the women chess players. And I should point out that there, as you know, there are very few women chess players. So most of the dependent variables in this data set are zero, okay? There's zero top women chess players in most countries in most years, okay? We do, however, get some significant results here. The player level results, remember that we saw before, the player level results suggested that women might be benefiting more from the internet than men. And these results are, if you'll recall, flipped in sign from what we saw for the men. So for the men, internet was negative, but internet-induced pool was positive, and we see the opposite for the women, okay? So women chess players seem to be benefiting from current internet levels as opposed to having benefited from high internet penetration levels during the time when they were learning how to play chess. So I thought that was sort of an interesting result. I'm not sure if I have a strong interpretation for it. Keep in mind that the number of women in the top 1,000 is very small. As I said, fewer than 10% of the country years have any women at all. And so, this is definitely something I'd like to investigate more. Okay, so finally, I'm going to finish up with just showing you a couple of graphs of indexes of geographic concentration. So the regression results suggest an important role for the internet in the dissemination of chess knowledge and skill. We've seen a graph of falling geographic concentration of chess skill from the very beginning of the talk. But what can we say about the internet's role in changing the geographic distribution? That was just a, sort of graph over 50 years. It didn't really tell us anything about the internet's role. So recall that I can calculate this Ellison-Glaser index using different predicted shares from models with, like conditioning basically in different demographics to decompose what the effect from those explanatory variables is. So what I did is I estimated two models, one with just population to predict the shares, and then another model with internet related variables to predict the shares. And we're going to compare those two. Okay, so here are the two indexes. So I just start, instead of going all the way back to 1970 or 1967, there was no point in doing that because the internet doesn't start mattering until the mid 90s anyhow. And so they would just be completely, aligned before that. Okay, so adding more variables to the model of predicted share always results in a lower index overall. Okay, so it's just like adding more variables to a regression always lowers R squared. The question is, how much does it lower it? Okay, so here the internet variables do a worse job of explaining chess skill before 2008. Okay, so the base model is actually lower before 2008, but then starting in 2008, the internet, the base model with the internet variables starts dropping pretty precipitously. Okay. So basically the way to think about this is that the internet is driving a faster sort of democratization of chess skill than we would see without conditioning on internet penetration. Okay, so if we just look at the base model, we see that chess skill the concentration has been going down, but that, sort of a large fraction of that is based on internet penetration, or we can decompose what the effect of the internet penetration is. So this sort of is reminiscent of Bob Solo's famous quote about computers. So he made this quote, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 years ago, but he said, you can see computers everywhere except in the productivity statistics. And what he was saying is basically everyone's adopting computers and we're not seeing any benefits of it. Like where are the benefits? We don't see any. And then of course, he said that 40 years ago, and in the intervening 40 years, we've started to see real benefits from all kinds of, all kinds of computing and internet technologies. And so here, again, it took a while for the index to start reflecting, sort of the role of the internet, but it seems to be doing that increasingly in the last few years. Okay, so let me just conclude here. I do want to emphasize the preliminary nature of these results. We're actually currently investigating, other specifications, alternate weighting schemes, thinking about a more inclusive sample selection, et cetera. And so these results could change a little bit. The ones that I've presented here are somewhat preliminary. And with that caveat, though, I do want to say that we find evidence consistent with the internet being an important tool in the dissemination of chess knowledge and skill, and therefore a determinant in the geographic distribution of skill. And we saw this first in the player level regressions. We saw stronger evidence in the country level regressions, and then the index movements also, both conditioning on the internet variables and not, suggested an important role for the internet in the geographic distribution of these skills. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
That was a very interesting topic, to be honest. And one thing, I guess, even the audience, we were getting questions from the audience. So one thing that we wanted to ask you was, earlier internet helped so much with chess and chess players in helping them building those skills, and also women masking their identities and playing against men. Do you think the impact that it had earlier, it still has now? Because right now, chess players and internet does not go so much together. So what are your views on that?
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting question. There's another technology that's becoming, that really wasn't particularly important in the early, like in the 1990s and the early 2000s. It's becoming more important. And that's playing chess against a bot as opposed to an actual person. And so it may be that these sort of internet chess sites become less important over time as people have, more and more people have access to high quality chess bots to help them learn chess. It's still, they would still presumably be learning over the internet, but it's just a different technology, a different internet technology. It's not the matching technology. It's more like access to, you know, these sort of chess bots.
Another question that we have is, what are the reasons for the large differences between the number of men and women chess players even today?
I don't know.
I think that is one of the parameters that is yet to be like searched upon and researched upon.
Yeah, exactly. So in full disclosure, I'm not a chess player. So I don't, I have a lot of friends who are chess players, but I am not a chess player. So I'm not very privy to the chess culture. I'm not immersed in it. So I could speculate, but it would just be speculation. I mean, it was very interesting to me to see those, even though they were sort of tentative, results given the small number of women, but, to see that it seemed like the women were benefiting more from the internet than the men. And that is suggestive of, a pervasive sort of bias against women. It's not definitive evidence of that. I don't want to claim that, but it's at least consistent with that. I mean, if you're an aspiring top chess player and you're a woman, and men are less willing to play against you because they're afraid of losing to a woman, and that would be embarrassing, then it's going to be harder for you to improve. So actually this, I mentioned early on this paper by D'Souza and Niederle. And this was a really interesting experiment. I mean, they didn't conduct the experiment, it was a natural experiment. But what happened in Spain was that there are all these local chess clubs, and Spain required for some period of time that every tournament have at least 40% women in it or something like that. They had a minimum number that were required. And what they found is during that time, of course, there was much more participation by women in chess. But interestingly, the requirement was taken off eventually, and they could track the women chess players who started playing during that period. And they found that the positive benefits on their chess playing endured. And so basically they had this short period where all of these women were given access to very highly qualified, opponents. and that had a lasting effect on the quality of their game. So
I think that answers the question. As you can see, many people loved your session. And to be very honest, this was something that we learned a great deal through, like chess and its benefits that was faced in the past and even now. So thank you very much for taking out time from your busy schedule and gracing our event with your presence. Thank you very much, ma'am.
yes,
We
thank you.
thoroughly
Thanks.
enjoyed the session.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Good luck with the rest of your conference.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Do you ever wonder what our country's future would look like in, say, 20 years? Would we still be the same economy as we are today, or will things change for us? That is a question which I'm pretty sure a lot of us ask of ourselves. Our next speaker will surely clear your doubts for the same and will provide you with a better clarity on what we can expect from our futures as a nation. He is a very experienced economist who has a PhD from MIT. He is an active consultant with wide-ranging international and US policy and operational experience, having served as a consultant to the World Bank in various parts of Asia and Africa. I'm pretty sure his insights are something we all should be very curious about. Please welcome Dr. Subodh Mathur, who will be taking on the topic, India's Path to Prosperity from 2022 to 2047. A very warm welcome, sir.
Thank you for inviting me. Am I clear? Audio, video, everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, you know, I was a college student in Delhi, God only knows how many years ago. Those days, we didn't even have a single telephone in the whole college. And today we are here sitting in different countries, and I can see that you have invited speakers from all over the world. And that just shows how much India has changed in the time when I was your age. Since the time I was your age, you know, we didn't have even, well, forget what we didn't have. We had a good time, regardless of everything else. We had less competition and we had less to worry about. So we actually wasted more time than you can imagine, okay? Not only that you cannot do, but you cannot even imagine the time that we wasted when we were college students. It was actually a joy to be a college student because there was nothing to do. It was just easy. Life was easy. I mean, we were poor, but life was easy. We had nothing. All right, let's get on with the topic. I'm so glad to be here with you. And let me see if I can start the share screen and we can get going on this presentation. So here we go. Let's see if I can make it full screen. Okay, all right. So this question is, when India is 100 years of independence, will we be a prosperous country? Okay, I won't be around, or even if I am, I won't understand what I'm doing, but you will be. And so I want all of young people to think about what India should do and can do. So that's where the question, why have I written this book? It's aimed mainly at young people. And they are too often ignored, though they are India's future. And here I've tried to empower you with information because you have energy and enthusiasm, and you need the information that can help you decide whether we are making good progress or not making good progress. And the book I've written is aimed at everyone, not specialists. You are all economists, but we can't just leave it to us. We need to have everybody with us. And there is a belief in my mind that India can be prosperous. We are not a poor country. We have been a poor country. And I have lived through those times, but I am living through these times. It won't happen overnight, but we can do it. Okay, so that's why the 25-year horizon. Anybody who says we will be a great country in 5 years, don't do the math. Well, I'm sorry, the mathematics remains where it is. You have to do it. Okay, so, all right. Here's an endorsement from Professor Jagdish Bhagwati. I'm one of his students, so he's a bit biased, so I'll skip this. Okay, the book is a comprehensive look at the economy. And this presentation is just the tip of the iceberg. And I would strongly urge all of you, when you have the time, to actually read the book. Because if you look at the topics there, you can see I have put in bold only the topics I'm going to cover here. But look at everything else. You know, I won't talk about infrastructure. I won't talk about the environment. I won't talk about international trade, population, all of those things I have covered in this book. So this thing is just, I'm mainly going to focus on chapter 8, which is putting the pieces together. But where do the pieces come from? That you can only get when you read the book. There's just not enough time to do it here. Okay, so what's the set the stage? I have a chapter 0 because, you know, I write in a quirky way. So sometimes I write the conclusion before I write the book so that I know what the book is supposed to say. And then when I went back, I said, God, I didn't write how the book should start. So I wrote chapter 0. Okay, so here we are, chapter 0. It sets the stage. What's the plan for the next 25 years? It's tough to plan for so long. We really don't know what will happen. The world changes too fast, especially these days. So I've divided into 2 parts. Phase 1, the next 10 to 15 years. We lay the foundations for prosperity. Let's not fool ourselves. We aren't prosperous. We have to still lay the foundations for prosperity. And for that, we can have a workable agenda. We can think about what we will do for the next 10 to 15 years. And if we have laid the foundation, then the next remaining years, we can continue rapid economic progress. I can't think what will happen 15 years from now. I can only perhaps think of what to do for the next 10 to 15 years. And honestly, nobody knows what the world, I mean, 3 years ago, we didn't know we'd be doing Zoom calls, right? So here we are. So how do we know? So how do we think when the world is changing so fast, right? That's the idea. So my focus is on resolving the key issues and barriers to economic progress. Some of you may have heard of this term SWOT. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I have focused on the W part, the weaknesses. And that's a sign of optimism. Because once you recognize, once you acknowledge that you have weaknesses, you are saying, okay, now I find a way to solve them, right? So you can't just say, oh, we are doing so well here. We are great at nuclear science. We can send things to the moon and all. Right, fine. Those are your strengths. But what are your weaknesses? If you don't focus on your weaknesses, you will not be able to progress properly. So it'll take time to find workable solutions. And the book offers no detailed solutions. I am not so great that I can offer solutions to all the problems. No one can. They will take time to find out what the problem solutions are. And the book has no jargon because we want to get everybody in on the problem. Okay, it's not a book for economists. You are all economists, but there's no jargon here. Since you are young, I'll tell you what life was like in 1947. I wasn't around, but I was around a few years later. It was a grim economic life. Don't let your grandparents tell you that life was good. It wasn't, okay? We were food short, we were low income, we were illiterate, we had low life expectancy, and hardly anyone had phones, cars, or healthcare. In our college, as I told you, we had one phone, which was a pay phone. It didn't work most of the time. So life was pretty bad. That was in 1967, not like today's life. So we were in bad shape. And let's not be apologetic for it. That's the way it was. So what's the status now? You can judge yourself what the status is. But my view is that we have built the foundation and a few rooms of a new home instead of a hut. We used to live in huts. We no longer live in huts. We have built a foundation. House is not complete. And I also like to say we are a quarterfinalist economy in the world. We aren't really the winners. We aren't even in the semifinals. Sometimes we can say we are in the semifinals. In the old days, we were not even participants. Okay. So we have made quite a bit of progress. And here is how I show the progress. There are two things that are fundamental to life, and that is life expectancy and literacy. So if you, as I said, in the 1947, you were illiterate and had a short life expectancy, you died early and you were illiterate. So nothing in life for you. So what has happened to us? From 1947, the literacy rate was like 12%, okay? And we are now at 78%. That's pretty good. And you can see the chart here on the red line. And the life expectancy has gone up from about 30 years to 70 years. I mean, you know, that's hell of a jump, okay? It's taken a long time, but we have done it. Of course, we are still behind China. China is 97% literate, and life expectancy is 77. Increasing life expectancy by 1 year at this time is not a joke. It takes a lot of effort now to increase life expectancy, and you can see the trend there. So we have done reasonably well on things that matter. I'm not looking at GDP or any such thing. I'm saying on the ground, more people, and especially the literacy rate among you. This includes the older generation that is illiterate. Young people, I suspect the literacy rate is like 90–95%. So the future is reasonable. But China is way ahead of us, and we shouldn't compare ourselves to any other country but China. That's the only real comparator. China GDP per capita is 5 times us. And even the growth rate, the second column, from over 2000 to 2019, leave out the pandemic, was more than ours. In the recent 5 years, the growth rate is same as ours. And right now, we have an opportunity because China's economic model is showing signs of age. It's outdated, it's fraying at the edges, and they are about to slow down. It's time for us to speed up. So having set that background, I want to determine the key weaknesses and barriers that we have to overcome. So what's the criteria to decide what these are? Now, these are my criteria. I haven't taken this from any literature or any other place. This is my thinking. One, it should affect a significant part of India's population and economy. Number two, it should be a major barrier to economic progress. Number three, it should be difficult to resolve, with no clear consensus on how to resolve those issues now. I wonder whether you've heard of the term low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit is the idea in the primitive days, you're walking along and you see a banana and you lift your hand up and you pull it down and you eat it. That's a low-hanging fruit. A hanging fruit is you have to climb the tree or get a ladder and get it from there. So we are very tempted to focus on low-hanging fruit. Why? Because we can deliver the result in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, right? We are not most practical people. And I work a lot with practical people. They're always focused on low-hanging fruits. Oh, let's do this. We can get it done in a short period of time. We can get the results in 2 or 3 years. And that's great, right? Like we go out and give LPG subsidy to all the people. We decide to connect everybody with electricity. Connecting people with electricity is not rocket science, guys. I'm an energy economist. It's easy, right? You just have to give the orders to the right people and they'll go out and connect it. You pay the cost, they'll get it done. So we do it, right? And we connect, we give LPG. It's a good idea, by the way, to give LPG to everybody so that they're out of those stupid chulas. But it's easy to do. It's a low-hanging fruit. It doesn't give them the money to pay their electricity bill, and they don't know how to buy the second cylinder of the LPG because you just gave it to them one. After that, they don't have the money. So the real problem there is that they don't have the money. It's not that they don't have the LPG. But so what I'm saying is here, I'm only focused on the tough problems. Those are the problems that your generation will face and will have to resolve in the future. We are too old for it, but you are still stuck with those problems. And that's what forms the agenda for me. Okay, so let's get to it. But before we get to it, apart from economic policy, there are certain what I've called as meta-economic factors. Now, these factors are well known, but the term meta-economic is not so well known. I have introduced this term here. Meta-economic means a non-economic factor that affects the economy. It's not fiscal policy, it's not monetary policy, it's not exchange. Those are economic policies. Excuse me. So we need a laser sharp national focus on economic progress. We don't have that right now. We have too many other issues that we are absorbed in. We aren't really focused on just economic progress. We have too many social and divisive issues that we are trying to resolve. It's time to put them on hold and focus on economic progress. And these meta-economic factors are too often ignored by economists who narrowly focus on economic policies. So let's take a look at one of the key meta-economic factors. And this is the role of state and local governments. And my proposition to you is that the union government alone cannot bring prosperity to India. We often think, what will the Prime Minister do? How's the Prime Minister doing? There is a recent report that India slipped in the hunger index, and people are saying, Mr. Modi, what have you been doing? I'm saying, listen, guys, it's not Mr. Modi's responsibility alone. It is also the responsibility of state and local governments. The union government is not so powerful as we imagine it to be. And here's some points that I want to make in support of that. First of all, the 1991 reforms greatly diminished the union government's economic role. What people call the government of India, I follow the constitution and call union government. And today, some private firms are quite capable. In the 30, 40 years ago, private firms weren't that capable. So the COVID vaccine has been developed without the union government. So what's the government going to take credit for it or negative for it? No, it's the private sector that is the Serum Institute in Pune. So we have capable private firms. And so that has diminished the role of the union government. And now we sell Air India too, and that again diminishes the role of the union government, right? So every day we see in economic terms a declining role of the union government. And I'm not talking about Mr. Modi or any other person. I'm talking about the Prime Minister's role in general. And the Constitution gives major economic powers to state and local governments. And those state governments and the local governments aren't really living up to their potential. So let me show you a table which you don't see in economics books. I've created this table, and there are 3 other similar tables in the book. If you look at the Constitution, it has the union list, the concurrent list, and the state list of powers. So here I'm talking about the meta-economic powers in the states list. And I list 3 here: public order and police, local government agencies such as municipal corporations, public health hospitals, dispensaries. Now this is the exact phrase used in the Constitution. Look it up in the states list. And there I have given the links to the economy. And I have 3 other tables in the book which show that today, apart from the ground reality, even the Constitution gives the powers to the chief ministers. Okay, so I'm laying here the foundation for a key argument that we cannot just let it lie on the head of the union government. Okay, so here's the big picture. And I'm shifting now from the diagnosis to a generic overall recommendation. So there's my slogan. UG is union government, S/LG is state and local government. Local government includes the Panchayati Raj institutions and the municipalities. And NPIs, that's a new term, non-profit institutions. So not UG alone. If you want it in colloquial terms, not PM alone, but PM plus CM. But formally, if we are going to make India progress, it has to be UG plus SLG plus NPIs. And you guys, you need to look at what NPIs are. And let me just talk a little bit about that. So the union government, it can't do the job alone. I'll list what I think the union government should do. State governments, I'll list what they should do. Non-profit institutions, we use the term NGOs, but I don't focus on NGOs because I'm looking at a broader concept. Look to promote productive activities. Normally we think of NGOs as providing social service, but here I'm looking Examples are Amul. Amul is a cooperative. Seva, which is in Ahmedabad, that's a trade union. And the union government today is talking about FPOs, farmer productivity organizations. So, and then there can be think tanks, etc. What could they do? These NPIs could help small firms to digitize. Now, digitization means using just your phone, not a laptop. You don't need that. You don't need a tablet. You just need your phone, and access finance. We will discuss these issues in a second. And they can help, trivial example, but not so trivial. Big cities better manage traffic congestion. Traffic congestion is a drag on the economy. It takes you 3 hours to go from one side of the city to another. That's a waste of your time. You know, you can try to do some things in it on your phone. You can try to have a discussion. You can try to have a talk, but it's a drag. It's a waste of time. And it has so many causes and so many solutions that there's no one single agency that can actually think it through. It requires work from home, staggered working hours. It requires one-way roads. It requires car sharing, or it requires better public transport. So the nonprofit institutions can think about these solutions and propose them in practical terms to large cities. And there are many other niche areas. If you read my book, you will find those. So that's the big picture. Which are our key states? When we talk about the states, I have listed what I call as the 14 key states. And I've divided them into 3 groups, P7, which is the powerhouse 7. They are the 5 southern states plus Gujarat and Maharashtra. And if you look at the left-hand side of the chart, it shows the P7 states. They have about 1/3 of the population and more than 50% of the GDP. So the Indian economy is really living off these 7 states. That's what's really driving. And these states are actually performing so well that their performance is obscured when we look at all India numbers, because they are actually growing at double digits, right? But we never see that because we have the next 5, which I call as O5, or the opportunity. That's where the greatest opportunity is. They have about 25% of the population and 20% of the GDP. And that's Rajasthan, West Bengal, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, and Assam. Okay, together, if they come up very quickly, then we will get growth here. And then I have E2, which is a very polite way of using a term. E standing for essential. It is essential that they do better. That's UP and Bihar put together. They have 26% of the population and 12% of the GDP. So they are the drag on our economy. And unless they grow at double-digit rates, we are going to be sunk at very low all India rates, because 26% of the population producing only 12% of the GDP. If they don't grow at double digits, how can the average be high? It cannot be. So this is my diagnostic at looking at it not nationally, at state by state, to say, listen, chief ministers, you better wake up. Now the P7, they are doing reasonably well. So it's not rocket science to go and see what they're doing. I can give you an example. The power companies, the discoms in Gujarat are very good. Why are they not so good in other states? Just go and hire those retired people and they'll make it work. But the chief ministers have to have the political will. If you look at what the union government's been doing since 2000, in the last 20 years, they've been trying to fix the power companies. In Delhi, yes, they have been privatized long ago, so service is reasonable. But in other places, service is lousy. And the union government's unable to fix it. They have Uday 1, Uday 2, before that they had other things, and none of them work. Why? Because they are not controlled by the union government. So we cannot say that the union government is responsible for the power crisis. It's the state governments, but we don't think about it. So I want you to think about it. So what should be the role of CMs and PRIs? By the way, that's Panchayati Raj institutions. That's the 3rd level of constitutional governance that we have in India. Very few people talk about them, but it's time that we started talking about them. So I have identified the makeover of agriculture as the most significant national economic challenge, because there are too many farm and non-farm rural families and their kids who are unlikely to ever become well off. They are living on Narega, they're living on farm loan waivers, they're living on subsidized LPG, subsidized electricity, subsidized inputs, no payment for this, no payment for that, lousy schools, lousy healthcare. They are never going to become prosperous. Just imagine that there's a 5-year-old today born to a rural Narega family or to a small farmer. There's going to be 3 kids, they're going to divide that small piece of land into 3 pieces. There's never going to be enough income. Plus, they don't have enough food. 20% of kids are undernourished, stunted. You saw the change in the hunger index. How are those kids ever going to become prosperous in 2047? And what's prosperous? In today's term, in tier 2 cities, to earn, say, 10,000 rupees a month, that gives you a reasonable living in a tier 2 city, not in big cities. They're never going to make it. They're going to be stuck at 5,000-6,000 rupees in today's terms, not taking account of inflation. And if we have so many poor people, how can we be prosperous? We cannot be. Plus, agriculture is too resource intensive. It's a major user of water. It's 75% of India's water is used in agriculture. And the water used is such that in Punjab and Haryana, the water table is dropping all the time because the usage is too high. We have a problem in Maharashtra where the sugarcane is growing in areas where there's limited water. So who will solve this problem? Not the chief, not the PM, not the union government. It's the chief ministers and the PRIs who know their farmers. They must take the lead. So unless we have a major makeover of agriculture, and you can read the chapter on agriculture in my book, we aren't going to be prosperous. Let's face it, it is one of the key major national barriers. We have all these symptoms, the farm laws agitation, those are all symptoms of the underlying problem. I mean, those people aren't out there agitating so that they can become multimillionaires or billionaires, right? They're out there because they are afraid that they won't be able to have the life that they lead. Now, whether they're right or wrong, that's a separate matter. I'm not going to discuss it here. But if you look underneath, why do we keep having these problems? Why are there farmer suicides? Why are there farmer indebtedness? Why do we have Narega on an ongoing basis where you just don't have the money, and you don't have the money, your kids are never going to make it. They're just not going to make it. So we have to fix this, right? So this is the role of the chief ministers that I have laid out, that they must maintain internal harmony and deliver better governance. So better governance means no red tape, less corruption, all of those things they need to do. And they improve educational and health facilities. Right now, I'm working with a nonprofit institution to help deliver health services in rural areas. Because we know they aren't there. You know, we can claim, yes, fine, we have the greatest record on vaccinations and this and that. But you go out there, there's nothing there, right? It's just not there. And the schools, you'll read the report of Pratham, Acer, kids, 30% of the kids in standard 3 can't read at grade 1 level, right? But what are they going to do in the future? Software? No, they're not even going to be able to run auto rickshaws in Delhi, right? So this is the problem. And they should improve the power discoms, and they must support their medium, small, and micro enterprises and develop their smaller cities. What are smaller cities? Leave out the top 7 cities in any state, the rest, next 5. Why should we do this? The last 2 points there will provide jobs for people leaving rural areas. Right now, what we saw in the pandemic is there are thousands and hundreds of millions of workers who have come from villages, and they are in Mumbai and Delhi. Why did they come so far? Isn't there some city nearer to their home which they could have gone to? I know they can't get jobs in the villages, but why can't they go to a smaller city? Why do they come all the way 1,000 kilometers from Bihar to Delhi? There's nothing in between where they could have stopped and said, hey, let's settle down here. I'm pretty close to home. I can get a job and my kids can get an education. Why do they have to come to Delhi and live in miserable conditions and make Delhi miserable? They don't have to. The problem is we haven't developed the smaller cities. We have a smart cities mission. Well, they are the 100 cities, but none of them is small. And the smart cities mission doesn't promote MSMEs, because you can make a city smarter with Wi-Fi and all this, but that doesn't give the jobs to the people who would like to move there, right? You need to develop those. And the union government does have programs to develop MSMEs. They have Mudra, and they give out loans in Mudra. Those loans aren't loans. They'll never be repaid. They are at no collateral. And which union government is going to go out and repossess the home of a medium income or low income person and say, hey, you didn't repay your loan, I'm going to take your home, right? No, they aren't going to do it. We know that as well as anybody else, they aren't going to do it. So what is their collateral? There's nothing. You can't go in there and say, hey, I'm taking over your small factory because you didn't repay your loan, right? You aren't going to do it. It's not politically possible. So those are not real loans. Then I say, if you don't give out loans, you cannot give it out next time. You can do it only once. So it's really, and anyway, the bribes and other hassles that these small industries or companies face come from local government officials. It's not like the finance ministry is coming from Delhi and hassling these guys over taxes. None of them pay taxes anyway. They do pay GST now, but they don't pay income tax anyway. It's the local fellows who are hassling them. It's up to the chief ministers to not just say, hey, we got Samsung to come and make a factory here. They got to say, listen, we help these small guys develop. So there's a role for the union government, a big role, but let me come to the key point that I want to make here. And the key role that I see for the union government is, and I'll read it out, make sure, along with RBI, that India's financial system provides adequate debt, equity, venture capital, and modern financial services to all farms and households. We have a lousy financial system. No state can develop a financial system. It is the job of the union government and the RBI. The RBI is like a timid player. And I'm not talking about the current governor. I'm talking about for the last 20 years. They are opening 2 major banks in the last 20 years, private. Now they have this small payments bank. This is not going to give any proper debt or provide equity. I mean, you think those small companies can trade shares in the stock market? Not a chance. Venture capital, we don't have venture capital. All the venture capitalists are running to Singapore and USA. We don't have any money in India to give to those people through a proper financial channel which compensates for risk and reward. Well, we don't. It's as simple as that. We don't. And we aren't really focused on modern financial services. There's too much focus on digital payments. Digital payments, by the way, I saw in Africa in 2010. M-Pesa, people were paying in Kenya with phones in 2010. So digital payments are nothing great, it's just old-fashioned stuff. It's just that it's new in India. In China, even the beggars don't take coins or cash. You have to pay by smartphone. So big deal. Now we are getting digital payment. It's nothing, man. What we really need is to jump ahead in this. So this is the most important production-related issue facing the Indian economy, because finance supports production in all sectors. And let me now make a point to economists that absence of finance favors a few large firms. They have their own internal resources. They don't borrow. They don't go, the equity markets favor them. Tata can buy Air India, and I'm not saying Tata is bad or their sale was bad. I'm saying it's good. I've supported it. But Tatas don't have any problem of money. They can get all the money they want, right? And so they can buy. What about the small person sitting in Jalandhar or Banswada or some such place who's got a bright idea? Nobody's going to give him or her any money, right? So, because you have no access to finance. So if you have no access to finance, then you cannot compete against the large firms. So when you see the concentration of large firms, it's because they have access to finance. Of course, with that, they also buy access to people and technology. But the key point is they have access to finance. I had a visitor at my home the other day, not the other day, last year, a well-off person from Gujarat who said, listen, I've given 10 crores to my son to start his new business. I said to myself, right, your son can get 10 crore rupees. What about somebody else's son who's equally smart and bright, but doesn't have a father with 10 crore rupees to give? He or she cannot go out and borrow the money or get the money from anywhere. So even though your son may not be the smartest and the best, because his father has the money, he has the money. So this is what I'm saying, that it's non-egalitarian to have a poor financial system. The union government must fix it. It's not something that there aren't enough studies, enough recommendations. There are plenty, but the movement is very timid. It's after 7 years that they're now about to fix the NPA problem of banks, right? Now, I don't want to discuss whether the solution is right or wrong, but we need to fix it. Find some solution and make it work. And that's just fixing an ancient problem. It's not for the future. Okay. One other thing, they must make India a leader in emerging technologies. We are way, way behind, as I told you, in digital infrastructure. We are nowhere in electricity storage. We can do solar, we can do wind, we can do all those things, but you have to store the electricity because they produce electricity when the system is right. Solar you need at night. How are you going to do it unless you store it? Okay, you have to store it. Agriculture, I already told you, we need new technologies. We are stuck with old technologies. In finance, we need new methods to share risk and report. And some of the work will have to be done by leading academic entities, which are NPIs, and we need to build them up. Let me leave this out. These are things you can read in the book. Key other consideration, don't destroy the local environment. We want to be prosperous, but we don't want to destroy the local environment. Okay. Polluted Ganga so hard to clean up, huge loss. We've been trying since Rajiv Gandhi's time to clean it up. We do a little bit here, we do a little bit there. It's not clean, people. It's just not clean. Okay. It's so hard. Delhi air, it's an international embarrassment. It hurts local people. All your lungs are scarred, let me tell you. You are students now, your lungs are scarred, okay? You had it, you don't know it yet, but 20 years later, your doctor will tell you, sorry, you lived in Delhi for 5 years. I see these problems here, right? It's an international embarrassment. We can't solve it, right? It's not like something that is rocket science. It's something that is very tough for politicians to solve, because politicians all look for votes in the next election. Nobody can go out and tell those farmers in Punjab, don't burn the stubble, right? Because you lose the vote. So here we need the NPIs to step in, to come up with solutions, to find a way to do things. What are those ways? Well, you are smart young people. You figure it out. I'm handing you the problem. You figure it out. You understand how to get this done. Because the governments, they're never going to solve this problem. And I'm not blaming any particular party. I'm saying it's all the same. They all look for the vote in the next election. It's not going to happen that they will solve the problem. We need to find the solution. And you have all grown up in Better Off India. You need to get involved in this matter. Okay, last year, I wrote a book called Core Economics. It's economics for non-economists. I wrote it in jargon-free, maths light, conversational style. Some of you may read it and still learn quite a bit from it. You can see that a lot of people, some economists, some non-economists, found it very useful. And if you don't find it so useful, some of your friends who aren't economists and who hate economics and who wonder why it has to be so mathematical, tell them to read it. There's not an equation in there. Hardly any charts of the type that we do in our econ courses. It's straight talk. And so let's just push from my side for economics literacy. Okay, this is not an applied book. It's a book that discusses, let's put it this way, it's what economists know and non-economists don't know, but should know. Right? So that's the condition. It's what I know and you don't know, but I think you should know, and I'll tell you how to understand it. That I've worked with so many non-economists over the years, and I used to always ask them, guys, didn't you ever take a course in econ? And they say, we did, but it was so terribly taught, we didn't learn a thing. So I sat down one day and said, look, this has to stop. I'm going to write a book where you can't say it's tough to read, it's hard to understand. It's pretty long, it's 230 pages. Okay, I'm done. All comments are welcome. And if enough people read the book and write a review, then I will set up a discussion forum for it so that we can have a free discussion about my ideas in the future, so that it doesn't end here with you. And I'm talking to many people these days. So it's not the only college. I have one with Shamlal College in about 10 days, and perhaps with some more. So I want to set up a discussion forum. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm open to all questions and comments, and negative too, no problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We have got a couple of questions for you.
Okay,
so
let me stop the screen share if I know how to do it.
Sure,
okay.
Sir.
Yeah, okay, fine.
So, sir,
Yeah.
Anurag Gupta has asked, are there social factors that also play a major role in the economic development, as southern states of India comparatively are more prosperous, economically developed than the northern states?
There is, I talk about reservations in the book and the impact of reservations. That's a social factor being translated into an economic factor. And my view there is that, listen, we have to figure out how long these reservations will last. Will they still be around in 2047 in the same way that they are now? Because if their aim is to help people who were hurt in the past, then we must figure out a better way than this. This is a terribly inefficient way. I'm not able to say that the hurt wasn't there. I'm not a sociologist. So if there is a hurt, if there is a set of people who were in some fashion discriminated against and are still being discriminated against, then this reservation system is the most inefficient way to resolve that issue. We need a better way. And we need a better way to, and the government won't think of it alone. Okay, let's put it bluntly. And by the government, I mean the union, state, PRI, everybody, and not of any political party, because these are too tough for them. Okay, so we need a way to solve this issue. Okay. Another social issue that I discuss in the book is economic also. It's that the Indian women's participation in the labor force now is 20%. It's lower than India, it's lower than Pakistan, it's lower than Bangladesh. So you can't attribute it to our culture because the culture is similar. And it was much higher in 1995. Since 1995, the participation of women in the labor force is declining. Just as the participation of women in schools and colleges is rising, the participation of women in the labor force is declining. So where have all those women gone? No one knows the answer. I don't know the answer. But we need to find a way to keep the bright women in the labor force. Okay? So that's the second social issue that I do discuss in the book, but it hasn't made it to this place. I don't know the answer. And I think no one knows the answer. What happens to all those smart women who top in high school and then they do well in college? You are here, but then they are not in the labor force. What happens to them? I don't know. And when I ask people, no one knows. These are the two social factors. Now, other social factors, of course, I have implicitly said that we must maintain internal harmony. Maintaining internal harmony is simply a way of saying that whatever are the divides between the social groups, those should be minimized. Because every time, there is an agitation, and I'm not taking sides in it, it just disrupts production. You have people blocking the roads, you have people blocking the railways, you have people burning stuff, you have people throwing stones at each other. Farmers are sitting somewhere, they should be growing crops. Why are they sitting here, right? It's a social, it's a socio-economic. So yes, we do, but I don't go into such great detail on it. I'm just saying maintain internal harmony. Don't let the divide. I said there are too many social divisive issues. Now, there are other issues which I don't think are so important that they should be made into the highest priority. So remember, my focus is on the toughest issues to resolve, right? Not on every small little thing. So there are many other things, but let's leave them out. The reservations is very important as an economic factor to growth. The smartest or the most able person should do the job. And if some people aren't able to be properly educated, why don't we educate them? I mean, you know, it's so stupid to say that, look, these people are caste X or group Y or whatever it is, and, you know, they were hurt so long ago. Yes, they were, but this child, he or she doesn't know that his great-grandfather was this or that. Why don't we give this child the means to be productive and to do well? You know, and the governments won't do it. Let me be honest, I'm blunt. So that's why I'm saying the NPIs must step in and say that I'm working with the NGO, let's say it, or NPI, that focuses on helping low-income, motivated young people in India who did not have the resources to get a good education, let's put it bluntly. So this group helps them develop their soft skills, right? And I work as a mentor. I meet a group every week for 5 weeks, and you can see the change in them. You can see this is the highest benefit cost ratio I've ever seen in my life. I just talk to them, whatever they want to talk about. 7 hours later, they're changed people, right? Now, I don't know what religion they were or what caste they were, or whatever it is. They were people who didn't get a great education and they want to get ahead. And my friends, many of my friends and I, we work all with the same group. And we all say the change is unbelievable because nobody talks to these people with empathy, right? Everybody dismisses them. Oh, you are no good. You are not. Say, yeah, but they're good. You just have to give them a chance, right? So I think there's a lot that the NPIs can do. The governments will never do it. We have to recognize. That's why I keep saying the NPIs. Okay. Anyway, let's move to the next question.
Thank you very much. So the next question is that the work of making India prosperous is not the sole responsibility of the union government. Rather, the onus is on everyone, be it NPOs or NGOs. But what measures shall the union take in order to make them accountable and responsible for the same?
Well, you know, the job these days, I find something that makes me unhappy, that the union government is, especially the Niti Aayog, and this practice started in the Planning Commission, so it's not something that's political. They've started issuing indices of rankings. Okay, there's a government ranking of colleges, there's a government ranking of governance, there's a government ranking of this, there's a government ranking of that. We now have indices all over the place. So it's not a bloody job to put out these indices, you know. Focus on your job, which is to produce, to get the economy going. Let the non-profit institutions do these rankings. Let them focus on these rankings. Get the government out of this. There's the governance indicator, then there is the college NIRF. Hans Raj, by the way, is highly rated. I checked it. It says there is rated 9. So, gosh, why is the union government through Niti Aayog or somebody else rating colleges? I mean, this is the modern world where everybody is reading reviews on Amazon and Yelp and every other thing. So we don't need the government to come and give us these reviews. You are all young people. You don't do a thing without reading 10 reviews. So why is the government issuing rankings, right? There's no point. Do your job. So let the nonprofit institutions rank cities. Let them rank institutions. Let them rank discoms. Let them, with Planning Commission started ranking the discoms. Now the Niti Aayog is ranking those discoms. We don't need this government to do this job. Let them focus on their job. This is just a waste of I am totally irritated by it. I'm saying, listen, guys, it's none of your bloody business. Let the non-profit sector do this. They are more unbiased. And if they're wrong, let 3 NPIs do this job, okay? So you guys are smart. You figure it out. I'm just giving you the problems that you have to solve. I'm not saying I won't help you solve them. I'm right there. Sometimes I'm very practical too. But at this point, I'm saying this is what you have to think through, right? It's your responsibility with other people to think through how this is to be done. And other than that, I think the time for when these young people ask me, sir, what should we do to help the country? I say, make good money for yourself. That's your main job. You don't have to worry about too much about the country. You be productive, you be prosperous, you figure it out for yourself. The time for sacrifice was your grandparents' time. That is over. Now it is time for you to do well, to be productive, to be hardworking, motivated, get your own thing going, right? And then once in a while, look around you and see if you can form an NPI or you can give money to an NPI, and then go and enjoy your weekend. There's the time for sacrifice. That was Mahatma Gandhi's time. It's over. You don't have to do that anymore. It's done. So don't worry too much, but make sure that some of you focus on the things that the country has to do. If I missed out some of the problems, you can challenge me and we can have a discussion about it. Or if you think that you know a solution, then we can discuss that. But other than that, have a good time. You're young, enjoy life, and be ready to face the future when you are in the workforce. Right now, do enjoy. There's no other time. This is the best time, trust me, to enjoy life. So do it. That's my message to you. Enjoy life. Okay. Thank you, Oshank. Next.
Yes, so Sir Srihari has asked, is it better to emphasize on financial integration rather than mere financial inclusion? We could open up more and more Jan Dhan accounts, but it doesn't seem to be operational until and unless we have a population into the formal economic stream. Please share your takeaways on this.
Jan Dhan account is a good idea, but it's like scoring a single or 2 runs when what you need are 4s and 6s. So this is a huge problem in India that we have, that we are happy to score singles and 2 runs. We need 4s and 6s. This is not going to be enough. Jan Dhan is very helpful, especially, Arvind Subramaniam coined the term JAM, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, and mobile, so that you are able to do your financial subsidies through the Jan Dhan account. But the Jan Dhan account, unless you can transfer that money onto your mobile and make some payments, it's not much. But still, this is not productivity, guys. This is convenience, quality of life, ease of effort, right? I'm able to get my subsidy directly without having to grovel and beg the local leader of the village. I get my subsidy directly, fine. And I'm able to spend it without having to go to the bank, and which is far away, which is nearby. And I'm able to, but this isn't productivity. It's quality of life, it's convenience, right? Productivity would be if the small enterprise in the village is able to get a loan or is able to get equity support, right? So that I have a bright idea and I can get equity support. So Jan Dhan account would be the place where this money would go. But that is not enough. Okay, so it's a small, as I said, it's not a bad step, it's a good step, but we can't be satisfied with small gains. I'm impatient, maybe because I'm old, I'm impatient. I want to see 4s and 6s because I don't have that many years to enjoy left in life. Maybe I have some 10, 15 years where I'm still capable of looking at things. I want, people say, yeah, it will take time. I say, guys, I don't have time. I need to see progress. I need to see it now. I don't want to wait. And I'm sure the young people also don't want to wait. They want to see it now rather than somebody say, oh, it will happen slowly and gradually and 10 years, 15 years. Why the heck do we have to wait all that long? So that's my message. Jan Dhan is a great idea, but we don't have the financial instruments that people can actually use for productive activities. Microfinance was one such thing, right? Microfinance was supposed to go for productive activities, though quite often it went into consumption. Well, you can't help that. How much can you check? But we need to focus on productivity. We aren't productive enough because we don't have access to finance. We don't have access to debt, equity, venture capital, all those things. Yes, subsidies, very good. Accounts, very good. But many of them have zero balance, right? Then that's an embarrassment because it's actually a cost to the bank. To have an account with a low balance, it's a cost. So you take that negative and you turn it into saying that, look, we need to provide more financial services. So I don't know whether you call it inclusion or integration, whatever you call it. As I said, we have a lousy finance system. We need to have a world-class finance system if we are to make progress. Okay.
Thank you, sir. So we have got Harshita Goyal, who has asked, sir, I have read your book.
Yes, she has. She's written a review too.
Okay.
She was the first one, and I want to thank her. I mean, she read it so fast. I just couldn't believe it. It was fantastic, Harshita. I'm so grateful to you at the speed at which you read this book. So yes, let's have your question.
Okay, so I've read your book and I'd like to ask two follow-up questions. First, what are your views on the point that overheated stock markets impair the real picture of the economy? Also, how well can the infrastructure formation be executed if most of it remains unutilized, in the sense that enough employment isn't being generated to cater to it?
Well, the stock market is actually quite independent of the economy, right? It's not totally unrelated, but it's quite independent. So we have to look at the economy itself and not just focus on the stock market. Stock market did well in pandemic, economy was not doing well, right? And so it's a completely separate business, and we shouldn't be distracted by it. On the infrastructure is actually being used in India. The roads are jammed. It's not that the infrastructure doesn't create jobs directly. I mean, we might look to see that these roads, these better trains, or these ports, they will create jobs directly. Infrastructure is a facilitative development. It facilitates others to create jobs. So the point of infrastructure is not to create jobs. The point of infrastructure is to support other businesses that will create jobs. So better electricity supply, better roads, they are essential. And better railways, essential, better ports, essential. You might have read that in many countries, including the US now, the ports are all clogged. And President Biden has said that the port of Los Angeles will now work 24/7. Why? Because this is a key barrier to growth in the next quarter. People want to buy things for Christmas. Those things have all come by ship. Ports are clogged and you can't do anything. Ports in Singapore are world-class. They are never clogged. They work well. Our ports are, I didn't write about them because they are not totally critical since we are not so heavily in export. Our ports are lousy. Okay, we just don't need to have such lousy ports. Again, it's not rocket science. We can do a much better job. But infrastructure is actually vital. Okay, and we are doing a reasonable job right now in terms of building roads, highways especially. We are doing the rural roads are still unpaved, which is a problem. But India is actually building highways better than it used to. By better, I mean more than it used to in the past. So everybody knows that this is a good activity of the current union government. We need to build the infrastructure. We are way, way behind in infrastructure and we need to build it. It's very tough to build infrastructure because you don't see the rewards the next year. You don't see the returns the next year. The returns take time to come and you cannot really charge the users the amount that is needed to finance the infrastructure. It doesn't work politically or economically. So you're going to have to always fund the infrastructure from taxes, right? That's the only way you can get it done. But infrastructure is critical, and we need to do much more of it, and much better too. We don't, like the discoms, that's a key part of the infrastructure. Our discoms are just unbelievably backward. So we need to build those discoms. You build the better discoms, you get better electricity. Nothing happens overnight. It doesn't create jobs, but it saves people the money. They don't have to have backup systems. They don't have to have inverters. They don't have to worry about outages. They can get on with the job of being productive. So infrastructure is absolutely essential, and we are way, way behind in that. So I would say that is, you go back and look in my book, the union government, there's a whole chapter on infrastructure. The union government has to do a much, much better job. And the states have to do the discounts. This is just impossible. Union government, we know how to generate electricity. Okay, there's no problem at all. We are not poor at generation. NTPC is very good, and they know what to do. Our big power lines, which are called transmission, the big overhead lines that you see, that's run by a government company which does a great job. It's when the electricity gets to your area, that's where the problem is. That infrastructure stinks. Let's just put it mildly. That's not putting it realistically, that's putting it as politely as I can. The chief ministers must wake up and get that fixed. Right? They haven't repaired those lines. They haven't upgraded those lines that run around your homes and to factories. It's just awful what's going on there. We need that infrastructure in place. And thank you, Harshita, once again.
Thank you, sir. I guess that's all the time that we have, and
Okay.
we would like to conclude the event.
Okay.
Prakriti?
Yeah.
I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our honorable speaker, Dr. Subodh Mathur, for taking out time from his busy schedule to grace the event today. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your invaluable insights and opinions on such an intriguing topic, the India's path to prosperity from 2022 to 2047. Certainly, the way you have explained how the individual productivity would eventually lead to the nation's